I've been following, like, I don't know, I think 1 or 2 years since you started this movement. And I think it's pretty cool that you go different part of the country and teach all the secrets and all the tips and tricks.
Set this meeting up because I knew about Iron Swag making a West Coast tour, and you guys were looking for stops, and this is a no-brainer, right? You know, we all know about Bradham, and so we were excited to have you guys out. The last time you guys were out here with a lot of good info, so we were looking forward to more of that.
Do you do SolidWorks? And I go, oh yeah, I'm familiar with SolidWorks. And he goes, okay, well, Iron Swag's about to do like a presentation.
And come out and see Altec and Dixon and kind of, you know, make your presence known.
We used a lot of SolidWorks, and I saw the Altec splash screen little Digger Derrick backyard unit, and I said to myself, that is so cool. Like, I think it'd be really cool to work for that company. And that company ended up coming to my career fair, and now I actually work here.
So I've been a longtime member of the SWUG group in Fresno. Just always try to stay in focus with what SolidWorks has to offer with the group. And Jose Saldana has been an awesome, group leader. Known him for a long time.
And I know every time I've been out here, I always learn something new. And bring a notebook. You're going to be exposed to a lot. You're going to learn a lot. But it's also the best format for you to get those questions out and get them answered by the experts. Plus, as I come to see today, all the different people on the Zoom meetings, you have gurus of people from all different backgrounds that can, teach even the experts something.
So I wanted to show up myself now that you're on this area of the country, so I thought that was a good chance.
Oh, well, I heard about it through Tara, she put this whole thing together, and it just sounded like a cool event. I mean, combining road tripping, motorcycles, and SolidWorks. I think that I took a lot of notes mostly on like literacy of shortcuts and stuff. I tend to do everything manually. I'll figure out a solution. I didn't get taught very well how to do SolidWorks ever. So all the solutions that I use day to day are things I figured out and I've just done them. That's a big takeaway for me.
I liked a lot of your tips and tricks. Some of those little things like the preset, your settings for the, can't close a sketch if it's undefined, things like that. For my world, I don't do it all the time. Like, I'm not every day doing it. I'm working on my own stuff on every now and then, so that would keep me defining all my sketches a little bit better.
I was that guy, like that you're talking about, and so I came to the first SolidWorks user group, and I didn't know about mouse gestures, I didn't know about shortcuts, I didn't know about using that little Alt key to zoom into your mates and like hide little surfaces and stuff like that. But once I found out about all those things, it really made my job so much easier and faster, and I was so much more efficient, and it really just improved my whole user experience with the whole thing.
I'd say bring a project you're passionate about, and just come in and try and meet people, and everyone here loves to talk about their projects and their hobbies, so it's a great place to get some inspiration and just make a plan to actually build something rather than just having it kind of kicking around in your mind all along the way.
Tips and tricks, easy stuff, right? That's right at the tip of your fingers, that you just got to know one button you can push and make you a lot more efficient. So I guess there's a lot to take away from, right? And everybody does things different, and so it's interesting to learn and like kind of teach other people as well. So I've got some other coworkers that didn't make it over and teach them these small tips and tricks.
Definitely to go, just give it a chance. It's nice to meet new people and people that are on the same track. So we share the same feeling, the same passion about design and SolidWorks.
And that's, I think, the way to get better at this is to just live it.
Say, if you're looking for support to network, SWUG Group's a really good way to meet somebody, extend. It's a very inviting community, right? Everybody's super cool here. It's a good way to come in, meet people, learn new things, and just network.
Show up. Everyone here is always nice. It's not like you go someplace and you're like, oh, who's the new guy? Everyone's here is nice and pretty well welcome and opening. There's guys here that have graduated college, and then there's guys here who probably wrote SolidWorks, you know, were some of the first users at SolidWorks, you know. Been doing it since the 80s and, you know, computer drafting before SolidWorks, and, you know, they come up and talk to you, and, you know, it's always a, you know, you don't feel unwelcome at any of these events by anyone.
Here we are, SLUGME 9. We got a big show in store for you.
I turned the key and I heard a little pop. And I was like, uh-oh, we're on. You know what's great for me about being involved with SLUGME is I get to work with some really talented, really smart people. Now I look at everything. It's like, okay, how is this going to get built? And then over the years, I take a look at it from the maker standpoint. And it's like, okay, you know, this is how is somebody else going to build this, but I want to know how I'm going to build it.
We wanted to leave a little hexagon shape to bring in that traditional SolidWorks cube.
You don't even need glue there. Press fit, it's all done. You know, model the chain, model some damage properties, as you can see how it snaps off.
We added this awesome new enhancement, the working zone. Select a bunch of vertices and maybe invert them so that all those other vertices are the ones that I want to be my working zone. Everything else will be fixed in place.
Welcome to What's New in SolidWorks 2026. We have partnered with Vermeer. Vermeer has really been with us since close to the beginning.
We're always looking at enhancement requests. We implement hundreds of user requests every year.
It's rare that we get something that comes along that I think has so many new use cases, and I can't wait until this gets out into your hands, the customers.
So I think this is an incredible marriage of SolidWorks design software and what the cloud brings to that.
It's one of those that you look at that and go, oh, I immediately know what to do with that. I can start using that right away.
Import models in the background. It's super simple. I mean, like, you can almost think of it very similar to the auto-generate drawings.
I believe this is one of the most significant enhancements in the recent releases. Now that data can be retrieved.
Now that I can actually put it right on the edge means I can get a little bit more accurate results. You know, it's a fantastic enhancement in my opinion.
When we get to our pipes and tubes, now we have the ability to have favorites.
Hello SolidWorks community, welcome to SLUGME 10. This year we have a real treat for you guys. Behind me is this dinosaur, this big monster. You will see how our team built this using our SolidWorks tools. So go ahead and enjoy the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to SLUGME X. This is our 10th edition of the SolidWorks largest user group meeting ever. I'm Todd Blackshirt alongside Eric Beatty, Dan Wagner. We've got a great project in store for you today. What did you guys think?
Well, I mean, you see it standing right behind us right now, right? This isn't the big reveal, but I hope by now everybody has already seen this data set and seen what we're going to get into today on previews and on our YouTube channel. But guys, what a wild ride. SLUGME 10. This is the 10th time we've done this, right?
Can you believe they let us still do this? I mean,
we were kind of joking before the broadcast that like, this is my 5th SLUGME being involved with you guys. And you were like, hey, we've got some ideas. I hope you're ready. I hope you're ready for that. Can you get on board? Yeah, can you get on board with this? So guys, I think everybody knows us at this point. We've done a lot of these, and this year we wanted to be up and be away from the desk and be up here with Frank.
Right in the mix.
Frank, the dinosaur.
Yes, right? Frank.
But we also want to intro the whole team, right? That's something I think we haven't done a great job of in the past is there's a lot of people here in the room helping, not only with the build, but the production and all of the things that led up to this moment. Let's get the whole team up here. Let's intro everybody and kick this thing off right.
Come on, get over here.
We got Jason Poole.
Jason.
Let's go, Jason.
John.
We got John Cleese.
Matt.
Mr. Matt Clegg.
Kirby.
Thank you.
Lou.
Kirby Downey. Chinlu. Rachel.
Sal. Andy Bobby.
Sal. And Andy. Suzanne's back there too. Shout out to Suzanne. Come on, Suzanne. Yeah.
Let's not forget about the rewatchable team.
Let's not forget Ian. Let's not forget Ryan and
Emily.
the whole rewatchable team.
Emily, for sure.
Especially Emily, because she's pointing the camera at us.
Shout out
right
to
now.
Sean too. Sean lets us take over his space here for SLUGME for a few days. So thanks to Sean for letting us do that. Emily and Ryan, the rewatchable team here. Ian, awesome crew we have here. So
let's not forget those who couldn't be with us today.
2 people that couldn't be with us, actually. Luke, he did still contribute to this project in a huge way. I don't want to give that away, so we'll see that here in just a bit.
Just keep an eye out for his contribution.
But also Isabel on the community team could not be here today either. Shout out to Isabel. We miss you, and we'll see you next year for sure. All right, everybody, back to work. We'll see you soon. You're on the clock. All right, guys. So, Todd, again, we've done this before, right? We've been here, but I hope there's some new people in the chat. Let us know if this is your first SLUGME, your second SLUGME, or your 10th SLUGME.
Where you're tuning in from.
Where you're tuning in from, right?
We like to think we're a worldwide event.
What is
we want to
SLUGME?
bring everybody in.
What is it?
It's SolidWorks' largest user group meeting ever, and we're trying to pull in the community and just share with them. And at SLUGME 6, we designed a really awesome car.
Yep.
But we didn't build it.
Right.
SLUGME 7 was our first build. So, I mean,
well,
should just take them
SLUGME
through
7, really, we designed something and it was built later.
Right.
Yeah, so let's get into it, right? For the build versions, the build years of SLUGME, we call it that, right?
We're evolving.
Yeah, we're evolving. And SLUGME 7, what was that like?
That was just nuts because it was we're going to hit every continent.
Yep.
We're going to do as much good as we can. The part that really hit for me was proving hearts.
Right.
But Jenica's desk.
Jenica's desk, that Doctor Who themed, computer workstation and workbench. I mean, the Daleks and everything.
Yep.
And then Jeremy Fielding's awesome build after the fact.
It was
the first. That really meant a lot to you.
It did, yeah. It was the first time as SLUGME we got to see these designs come to life, right? These guys put so much time into designing a desk, designing something for a person in need, and then we worked with Jeremy Fielding to physically bring it to life. And I got to go to her house, and deliver it, and like what a moment that was. It was amazing. SLUGME 8. What did you guys remember from 8?
That was one where we're like, okay, he had fun building that. We want that fun.
Yeah.
We want to be the builders this time.
Yeah, and I think we realized we have the talent. We kind of looked around this room, right, at all these awesome people, and we're like, yeah, we can do this for sure. So what did we build, Eric? What did we build for SLUGME 8?
Well, we built a little lending library, just like you see in various neighborhoods, and it was this whimsical little birdhouse bookhouse.
Yeah, and actually we heard from Jason Poole recently that that didn't just go in a warehouse somewhere, right? He took that to his kid's school, concreted it into the ground, and children get to take books and donate books to it. Yep, that's awesome. That's exactly what we want to see from a SLUGME build. We went kind of a different direction though with last year. So if you guys remember, we try to get our designers, our team to participate every year. It's a lot of work for everybody involved. Jason had one rule. He said, I'll do it again, but I got one rule. What was it, Todd?
We got to put a motor in it. It's got to have a motor.
It has to go.
And we wanted Jason involved. So yes, we're going to put a motor in it. We don't know what we're going to make, but we're going to put a motor in it.
Yeah, and it was kind of like, okay, well, we have a lot of great partners that build electrical parts. And we're like, hey, Bowhead does some really awesome electrical bikes.
And they've got an awesome adaptable drivetrain.
Yeah, like they sent us their drivetrain, and it was basically turnkey. We had the task of retrofitting it to a tube frame electric drift cart. And man, that was a fun project. That was awesome. You're seeing on screen, we got to have the executives drive it and drift it around the parking lot right here in Waltham. I was really concerned for my career that day personally, but
and so was the entire legal staff.
Yes, yeah. I saw a lot of people in the windows looking out, but no, we survived. Everybody survived that day, and it was a blast, and we got some really great footage. But the whole team got to drive those things, and we even brought one of them to 3D Experience World last year, earlier this year, so everybody could see it. So that was a blast. What do you guys think about this year, though? I mean, how do we transition into saying, like, why did we do this? Why did we decide to do what's behind us here?
I think the best transition is you saw the executive team driving the drift carts.
Right.
And it's like, we're like, oh, please, please, everything go okay.
Right.
And they had a blast. They loved it. It was great video. The video you just saw of them seeing this for the first time.
Yeah, so let's take a look at that. The executives got to take a look at the Dinosaur here in the lab last week. Let's roll that right now.
Come on, is it like random? Ooh, what? Look at this! Oh my God! Who did this? I know who did this.
Okay.
This is pretty good. Oh my God!
This is for SLUGME 10. A bunch of amazing people came together to build this.
X shape. Yes.
Everything is designed inside.
Yep.
It is X shape. Oh my God! Look at the texture. It is truly. It is truly amazing. My God!
How was all of this finishing? Like, who did the finishing? Jason?
Question: where do you guys think we should put this when it's done?
Maybe
near the chopper.
big for the. I think here for now because we.
No,
this is huge.
More visible. I think either on the top of the building or in the entrance. They say, you know, SolidWorks are the best makers in the world. This is made by and with SolidWorks. Designed and made.
Built. Next time, articulated one.
Who was the guy that did the monster? They went to Burning Man.
Jonathan Tippett.
Jonathan Tippett. Let's hire this guy.
Here, you can take it.
Okay, I see. And then Chilu. Next should be Burning Man. Let's go to Burning Man. Let's go to Burning Man. My God, this is amazing. This is amazing.
I tell you, they might look like grown men, but I've never seen three more excited 10-year-old boys right there. You know, in fact, I know this got edited out, but GP was actually expecting to be able to ride the Dinosaur since he got to ride the drift track last time.
True. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. So thanks to those guys for stopping in. Just like the support we get from the executives, we also get a lot of support from our sponsors. Let's take a look at those sponsors now. So Dell, NVIDIA, and GoEngineer were our core major sponsors this year. We'll focus in on them more in just a moment. But guys, how about Luke? How about the support he gave us?
Oh my God.
Oh.
You know, we'd seen some pictures, but until you see it in real life,
he kept teasing us.
Yeah.
And we just knew, I mean, we already knew that anything Luke does is going to be out of this world, you know. I guess that's why he's orbital effects.
Exactly.
You know? But,
pictures don't do it justice.
Not at all. Not at all.
I also want to give a shout out to 3D Print UK for letting Kirby join us here once again. Kirby's been here with us for a couple days, and he's basically been working since the moment he walked into the lab, which is exactly what we needed to get this done. You're going to hear from Kirby more later on in the show. You're going to see some example 3D printed parts. when they're at the desk, pay attention to a lot of the parts that are on the desk because they're beautifully printed, smaller versions of Frank here. And everybody's kind of like, you know, vying to see who gets to take them home. We'll find out what happens at the end of the show.
We always have a bag check at the end of every session.
We do,
just to make sure they're still here.
We do. Now, specifically for Dell, though, they have continued to support the user group network as a whole over the last few years. And I had a chance last week to sit down and talk with Ken from Dell. So let's take a look at that video now.
Ken, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it. I know we wanted to have you on site for SLUGME, which is next week, which is pretty crazy. But schedules couldn't get aligned, so I'm glad we at least got to get connected today and chat and just talk about your support for this event, but also support for SWGN as a whole. So I really appreciate you joining us today. And what did you think, I guess, when I first said, like, hey, we're building a dinosaur, and I'd really love to have your support and have Dell be part of this?
Oh, you know, it's exciting. It's a lot of fun, right? You know, so a project like that is a lot of fun. You know, sometimes it's work, and you know, when you can take a hobby and do something really interesting and engaging with it, it's awesome. But you know, SolidWorks as a tool and as a community is something that we feel really strongly about supporting. You know, user groups actually talking to end users and practitioners, hearing their stories, understanding kind of challenges and workflows that they are up against, because you know the hardware, the stuff that we do is so foundational to all these things, whether it's dinosaurs or you know more serious work.
Right. Yeah, or like large data sets. And that's actually something I hope our viewers see today, right? I'm fast forwarding here to the future a little bit, but as we unfold this data set, although it is fun, it's a dinosaur, it's really complex. It's, as you can imagine, a very complex surface model and a lot of details to it. And something like that certainly lends itself towards great hardware, for sure. Beyond what we're doing here for SLUGME, the support from Dell also helps with really all SWGN events, right? And as part of that event, we're doing a bit of a giveaway, right?
That's
Can you
right.
tell us a little bit about that?
No, that's right. We have a beautiful ultra sharp 32-inch display, and you know it's a Thunderbolt hub monitor, so it's got a lot of you know, power and capabilities just on board. But people love our displays. Unfortunately, it's not a workstation, but we do have a really great following in our displays business, and I know that no matter what system you're using, you can always use a big, beautiful display. So you know, the hardware stuff does end up being, we're talking about workstations, the Dell Pro Max line, it does end up being so tailored to workflows. I think, you know, we can ballpark what most people might need, but you know, if you're building large complex assemblies, if you're working in you know, fields that are just very, very large scale, or a very severely large number of parts in the assembly, that's very different than if you're doing something you know, kind of smaller part modeling. So scalability and configurability of those workstations ends up being part of the brand, right? You can go from an entry product, maybe you'd be given a project manager, you know, a thin and light laptop that doesn't have the super topped out GPU, but they need to go spin a model around of whatever size that is. Or you also need the far end, you know, I want to do scalable things. I want to do simulation, and I want to use the visualize tools, and I want to really drive a lot of performance on board my system to get more use out of these models, and everyone in between, right? So that scalability and configurability ends up being making it sometimes kind of difficult to give away a workstation that's going to fit the need of the individual and the kind of challenges they're facing. Yeah, that's a great point. That was really kind of an excuse for not giving away a workstation. Maybe just a little bit. It's a just 32-inch ultra sharp. Come on. Still really nice. Still really nice. Yeah. After of course chatting with you here, we're going to show that QR code and let everybody, at least in the US, get a chance to enter for a chance to win that. And I think we're going to ship that out later towards the end of the year as we roll that out at other events as well, which is really cool.
Ken, is there anything about any product announcements, any news at Dell, or anything else you want to mention?
Yeah, I think you know, I was in the software business and reseller channels and consulting and training, and I did that for years. And you know, I know that the focus is very much about the software. And every year there's a release of software and extra enhancements and more features and faster and all this optimization. What I don't think a lot of people realize is that same type of yearly release and innovation is happening on the hardware that runs your SolidWorks, but also runs everything else you do, digitally. It's your primary tool. So it does end up being like you got to have a little bit of a decoder ring to understand some of the spec details around, what generation of CPU do I have? What generation of GPU that I have? There's a lot of letters and numbers in that. So a little bit of education, just really encouraging people to look at not just, do I have an NVIDIA RTX GPU? Is it a 5,000 class, a 4,000 class? But actually get involved in one layer further so that they know that they have an RTX Pro GPU, which is the newest generation. Because it sounds very similar, right? I have an NVIDIA RTX 5000. I have an NVIDIA RTX A5000. I have an NVIDIA RTX 5000 Ada or NVIDIA RTX 5000 Pro, Pro 5000, excuse me. I just described 4 generations of advancements in GPUs. Now, I know that that's terribly boring, but it's also really important because it's a pretty serious investment that you're making and has a lot to do with the longevity of your system. So just want to encourage people to educate themselves on the major specs and kind of generational differences in some of these major components that they are investing in.
Yeah, that's a great point. And we, even in the user group network, try to offer some of that education too. We're running another event later in November that Dell's also supporting for data management, CAD admins, right? Because kind of what you're describing is like most of that has to go through the CAD admin at the company, the IT team, the hardware team. It's not always the SolidWorks end user that gets to make those decisions and really understand how those things can impact them. So yeah, for that event as well, we certainly appreciate your support for sure.
Well, we'll continue to support SolidWorks users group wherever we find them, and it's been great working with you, Dan, and all these kind of events and being able to do this virtually. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there in person, but maybe next year we'll find a way to do this all together.
Well, hey, I got good news for you. You come into 3D Experience World in February?
I am coming to 3D Experience World.
Okay.
It's kind of in my area of the country, so I'll just be driving down to Houston. I live in the Dallas area, so yeah, I will absolutely be there. And we're doing planning for that event right now. I had just got off a call about it, so looking forward to seeing you there.
The good news is the Dinosaur will be there in person.
Oh, well, I'm actually a little bit more excited about the Dinosaur than seeing you there, Dan.
Yeah, that's all right. I would be too. Yeah. All right, Ken. Well, it was good chat with you, man, and we appreciate the support as always. And I guess we'll see you in Houston in February.
See you in Houston.
I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm a huge Dell fan.
Oh,
I
me
bought
too.
My first one 25 years ago.
20 years for me.
Yeah, because I looked at the build date. It was 11/10/2000.
Oh, right.
So it's coming up on the birthday.
As you heard in the video too, we're again, huge thanks to Dell for all the support. We're doing a giveaway. If you're here in the US, you can scan that code and enter for a chance to win a really cool display. I know you can't see it, but we have some monster Dell displays even just in this room. So we again
couldn't do SLUGME without them.
Couldn't do SLUGME without Dell for sure. So enter for a chance to win, and we'll be shipping out that display later on this year for whoever wins that here in the US. Also, again, I'll just quick mention GoEngineer. You're going to hear a lot from the team on GoEngineer a little bit later in the presentation. Jason actually had a chance to do a quick interview with Nick from GoEngineer, so stay tuned for that.
We really helped move this whole project ahead by
a whole lot. Yes.
A lot.
Yeah. So shout out to GoEngineer, and we'll hear more from Nick and Jason later on. Other ways you can get involved in this community, right? If you're here hanging out with us today for SLUGME, I hope that means you want to be a part of our community and hang out with more SolidWorks users. Earlier this year, we launched a new home for the SolidWorks User Group Network at swugin.org. We have a great QR code there for you as well. Guys, if you had to guess, right, we launched that platform basically end of February. How many users do you think we have today?
Gobs.
Oodles.
Gobs and oodles. Those are good guesses. Over 13,000.
Well,
So
that's the conversion.
Yeah, let me convert that to numbers. Yeah, over 13,000 people have joined us just since we launched. It's turned into like a singular source of truth for all things SWGN, right? What events, what groups are out there? How do you connect with people? Go to swgn.org and check that out.
And the awesome thing about it is you can host meetings through it, because we did a meeting with Prasad about this event leading up to
Just
this
last
event.
week.
So, and chime in the chat if you were there for that meeting of Prasad's, because we had 100 people.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
How about some other community resources, guys? You're seeing some awesome QR codes on screen. The forums, LinkedIn, Discord, WhatsApp. Eric, what's your favorite?
Well, the fact that I'm standing here right now is probably the only time that you will not find me on the forum.
On the forums, right? Yeah, the forums is like a totally free public open space where anybody can contribute. You can ask questions, you can answer questions, find other SOLIDWORKS
You can
users.
show off your work, your projects.
Take a screenshot of these QR codes, join us in those spaces. We wish we had SLUGME or 3D Experience World all year round, right? But these are other spaces you can connect with us any other time of the year. Another thing we want to take a moment to remind everybody about is the benefits of being on subscription with SOLIDWORKS. Do you guys remember any of like the core benefits of being on subscription?
The big ones are always, you get the latest release all the time.
Right.
You can call into your local VAR for support.
Right.
You get incredible certification resources to, help you take your SOLIDWORKS game to the next level.
Yeah, those are all like certainly what comes to mind immediately when you think about staying current with SOLIDWORKS.
Those are on the surface.
Those are the surface ones, but also major important ones. One that we don't talk about enough is also as part of subscription, you get the benefits of cloud services. You get the ability to connect your version of SOLIDWORKS to the cloud and save your data to the cloud rather than to, like, Todd, where do you save all your data?
Well, usually desktop, network, that's bad. But if I want to share with people, I throw it out to the cloud, I open it up to them. And we have such a big group here, and we're scattered. We're all over the world.
Yep.
Literally.
And, Frank didn't put himself together.
Right.
And so we had to do work together, and that was how we did it.
So I'll ask our SOLIDWORKS team online, drop a link in the chat to the cloud services page, because once you land on that page, as a SOLIDWORKS user, you're wondering, like, well, how do I turn this on? How do I get access to it? There's a link to a really great wiki that you get a guide as a user or a CAD admin, because they can be two different people.
Sometimes they're both.
Sometimes they're both, right? Depending on your role in your company. But you got to know how to do it. There's a great guide there that you'll find, and it will walk you through. And in today's presentation, pay close attention, because Gian is going to take you through like day in the life using that stuff. Frank, this Dinosaur, as you already said, Todd, it's not designed alone in SOLIDWORKS Desktop without connecting to everybody else, right?
Right.
It was designed as part of a team in a collaborative space in our cloud tools, right? So it's a perfect example.
Just an assortment of tools, because this is all hiding some serious structure inside.
Yep.
Some serious engineering went into the armature, the framework, the jigs and fixtures that were used to put this thing together for welding.
Weldments.
And SOLIDWORKS, couldn't have done it without SOLIDWORKS. And then this beautiful beast, this body, wow, the sub-D modeling tools on the platform. Even a guy like me can surface model.
Let's also give a shout out to Sal and Chinlu and their YouTube channel, Our Next Make. The reason being is, if you like this kind of content, if you like designs and physical builds in one broadcast, right, or in the same content, that's their entire channel. They make awesome content. They just did, I think, a recent video on the build of the big Model Mania Extreme ring for 3D Experience World. If anybody was at World and saw Gian and Jason in that ring, it's crazy, right? And we're going to see that back at 3D Experience World 2026. So check that out, Our Next Make. You'll get a link to that in the chat as well. Well, guys, here's a quick video of some of their content from Our Next Make. So beyond all these events, beyond all the different areas you can connect with us, what we're building today, we know SLUGME is like our Super Bowl here in SWGN, right? But beyond SLUGME, beyond everything that we do, of course, we have 3D Experience World coming up in just a few months. It's like around the corner. Like I feel like we're like
86 days.
Yeah, which is pretty wild. So if you haven't already registered for World, do so now. The agenda. Sal, when's the agenda live? Where's Sal? Was it yesterday? Yesterday. The agenda is live. You can see your sessions.
You can register and immediately start signing up for sessions. The hands-on ones go quick, so head for those first.
Are you doing any sessions this year, Eric?
I'm presenting one session.
Okay, all
I'm
right.
slacking this year.
Only one, yeah. Let us know in the chat also. Are you doing a session? Give us a link. Find your session in the agenda. Give us a link to it and let everybody know about it.
Are you attending?
Are you attending?
Put that in the chat.
We have a meetup for first timers on Sunday. So if it is your first time going, we have a meetup in the main space in the Hive for basically getting you acclimated with this crazy event that we put on, right? So check that out. 3D Experience World is going to be awesome. And also, like, it's the second year in a row at Houston. So we worked out all the kinks, right? We're back where we were last year. And it's just going to be a blast.
Barbecue.
Yes.
Best place.
You know, all the best steakhouses to hit, everything, all that's good.
And another exciting thing about this year is that we are opening up the SWGN Leaders and the Champion Summit meetings to the general public. So you can join us to find out what it's like to be a SWG leader, what it's like to be a champion, and how you can get more involved.
Also, what you're seeing here today is still the maker's journey, right? That's what we're still here to tell the story about today. The maker's version of SolidWorks. Eric, what do you know about that? Have you ever spent any time with the maker's version?
I am like Mr. OG Maker subscriber. I can't claim, to be the very first, but I've been with it ever since it launched, and I think it's the most fantastic offer. I mean, for under $50 a year, that's maybe like 4 lattes at your favorite coffee shop. You've got full-blown SolidWorks. You've got CNC programming. You've got incredible sub-D modeling tools on the platform. You've got rendering and animation. Awesome. You've got, forums. And I can't say enough good stuff about it.
Yeah, I mean,
if you've got a project, you need it.
Yeah, if you have a project at home, if you have something you want to tinker around with, the maker's version is perfect for that, for sure. All right, guys. Well, we're getting ready to get into the build. What do you think? Where do we go from here, Todd?
I have no idea, but we've set a really bad precedent where we have to outdo ourselves every year.
I know.
And this is going to be really tough.
I don't know how we top this. So if anybody has any ideas in the chat, let us know.
Post it in the chat.
Because we follow your lead. We're here for you.
For sure.
And another quick thing about 3D Experience World this year, Frank's going to be joining us. So stop by, get your picture taken with him.
That's a great point too. Yep. Cool. Well, guys, this was awesome. We're here for our 10th edition. We're going to pass it over to Gian and Jason at the board to take us through the inspiration. How did we end up with the dinosaur, right?
What made us think this would be a good idea?
You'll never believe where we started.
Yeah. All right.
Hey, what's going on, Sluginators? I am Jason, and I am here with Gian Khaleesi, the man, the myth, the legend, the all-knowing anything CAD-related 3D modeler genius guy.
That's my typical introduction. Yep.
Yeah, we're
CAD
here at
genius.
the 3D Experience Lab in Waltham, Massachusetts for SLUGME X, okay? And we're going to walk you through our concept phases, our ideation board.
A lot of considerations we made along the way. But yeah, like Todd and Eric said, you will never believe where we started, ending with Frank here. But let's get we used what, 3D Lean?
Yeah. So one of my favorite tools whenever I start any project is the 3D Lean board. It's browser based, and basically how I use it is it's like a dumping ground of all this information, all these pictures and sketches, links to materials that we're going to need down the road. And it's just a great way to lay out on a very large level all the different ideas that are swirling around. So anytime an idea struck me or anyone else on the SLUGME X team, we would go ahead and upload the image, maybe a little post-it note, and it's just something to corral all these ideas. So we're going to take you through where everything started, before there was dinosaurs or any of that, there was a herb garden furniture. Okay? So come on.
Yeah.
Right in here. So this was the first idea that was pitched, okay? And basically it's furniture that sits on your patio that grows plants, because Gian, furniture needs to do more.
It does.
You know,
it's not doing enough.
we all have multiple jobs these days. Why not the furniture? You know, so furniture needs to do more. So these were some concept sketches that we had going on. This was a coffee table that grew plants and watered itself, built-in irrigation.
Yeah, we wanted a living piece of furniture.
Sure.
That was kind of the some of the inspiration behind this.
So, you know, that was fun to talk about. But then we got into, you know, the old school Pinewood Derby days. Okay,
Yeah.
You'd build a wooden car and you'd roll it down a ramp and see how fast it could go. But we decided hyper air races.
Yeah, we wanted the next generation. Like, what would the future engineers that are kids right now, how are they gonna, you know, compete in a cool challenge like this? With aerodynamics, we were gonna do like a pressurized
look how
tube
much
system.
fun these guys are having, right? So check it out. This was the idea. This was the launcher, okay? So you would design a device and it would be launched. See, look at how happy these people are. Don't they look like they're having a great time? Getting ready to launch a cat across New York City.
Reminds me of going to the bank,
This
too,
is the
kind
bank
of.
lady. Yeah, getting it done. So the idea was, you know, hyper air races, something like this that goes up and around and through the ceiling and down, and, you know.
Yeah, we thought it'd be cool to do at World too, so people at the conference can compete. So if you think we should do this next year, let us know in the chat.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
And then the next one was,
you know what?
yeah,
There was a request to design a backpack. So we did that. We did a quick sketch of what, like, this backpack, like, this is it closed.
Yep.
And this is it opened. So it's got like a butterfly effect. And then, you know, the 4-point racing system quick release belt buckle to attach it all. And so that was quick. We just worked with that. And then we got into how cool would it be to do a 3D printed community?
Yep.
Okay.
Community build where different people all contribute their own individual part that would all come together, which more on that later. But this was another really cool idea that we
The
had.
idea was to start with like a basic SolidWorks cube, also known as Cubie. And then each zone would be assigned to a maker out there or a builder. And then they would show up and show out with their best 3D printed objects. Okay. Just an idea. We passed on it for this year, but this is all the process. You got to understand, this is everyone working together. It's a big team trying to come up with something. So then we decided, hey, what about a couch that is an alligator, like in the famous movie here? Okay, Steve Carell. So we were kind of leaning towards maybe a reptilian style couch, because I hear they're in demand. Okay.
They are. They're in high demand right now. We had a bunch of different concepts. We were doing different animals. Yeah, I know the hippo is a consideration, the elephant, and then this is at your house, right?
This is a cow couch. It's very popular. Really enjoyed that. That wasn't supposed to be on here. Trying to keep it clean here.
Yeah.
So
we got dragon was another big consideration.
Dragon couch was awesome. And then we got down into, you know, some dinosaur couches.
Yeah.
Right? Like, look at this. This is something you might see at like a children's dentist office or something like that. I don't know. But it was a couch, right?
Yeah, it was cool. It was a cool concept. How did we get to dinosaur from like normal animals though?
Just because dinosaurs are cool.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like it's
I always thought
partially
they were
because
cool.
I was at your house and your kids have like literally over 100 dinosaurs around.
Yeah.
Yeah. At
we
least.
we collect
It's
toys.
like no wonder why dinosaurs are always on Jason's brain.
I'm big on toys. I like to have fun, like to play. So this Chinlu did these beautiful concept sketches of animal couches and animal footstools.
Yeah, and
check out the
hippo
bear
one, and then we used some. Yeah, the bear one is pretty sweet.
Like if I ever have like money and I don't know what to do with it, I'm hoping Chinlu will make me that bear couch, because wouldn't it be awesome? Just like hanging out.
It would be pretty sweet.
Checking some email in a bear couch.
We had AI to help us on some concepts, some early ideation.
Yeah,
we were kind of like,
you did this one.
Yeah, because we were going to combine like the community wall and the couch and have like hexagon pieces that fit into it.
I like the
That
alligator a
gator
lot.
one is pretty sweet.
You know, everyone needs a gator couch. And check out the shark couch. That was pretty cool. That was clever. And then you got to see what Sal did. This is Sal Lama's best work right here. This is the hippo elephant at the watering hole with beehive, we call it.
Yes. But we decided not to because it's too close to the same furniture that they have at home.
Yes, yes. And you know what? Then I got a text because we were like, you know, all these animals are cool, but there's nothing really. We'd be modeling something that already exists. We wanted to create something that no one's ever seen, so we could have like creative freedom throughout the whole project.
We needed some imagination in this.
So that's where we kind of started leaning towards Dinosaur. And then Dan Wagner sent a text that said Slugosaurus, and it stuck.
Yeah, it did.
Like, we're doing a
At that point,
Slugosaurus.
we were like, yeah, now we have to figure out, what does a Slugosaurus
Don't
look
know.
like?
It's
Is it a
aggressive.
carnivore?
Yeah.
Is it an herbivore?
Yes.
How tall is it? We were originally planning for like 40 feet tall, but
And so Gian did these concept sketches, which were really cool.
Yeah,
and he called
so
it
fun.
a Slugosaurus Rex. Okay.
I just threw Rex at the end of it.
Yeah, it sounds cool.
It
you know?
does. It does.
Slugosaurus Rex. You don't want to mess with that if you see one like out in the street.
No.
So then we both just kind of set off on our own in X shape.
Yeah, I don't know if we had the full team's buy-in before Jason and I just started modeling dinosaurs in the sub-D tools, but we went for it.
There was a time when, I don't know, it was like 2:30 in the morning maybe. My wife came out to the garage and was like, "What are you doing?" "This dinosaur is not going to model itself." And she's like, "I think you should go to bed." And I was like, "Yeah, you're probably right." So I did this one like real aggressive, like T-Rex, you know,
T-Rex is
40-footer, you know. So transportation was going to be a big deal. And then Gian did this guy right
At the same time, kind of like more like Raptor inspired. I was kind of going smaller so we could actually, you know, build it in real life and fit it through a door. But we had a couple things we liked about each. I think you really only liked the pose of mine.
I loved the pose of this. And, and look, I even put a post-it note right here that says the pose is money. I like how it was like protecting but ready to strike. And I liked how clean your model was. My model had a lot of stuff going on, a little aggressive approach, a lot of vertices. Yours was nice and clean and easier to work with. So what we did is we pretty much fused my concept model and his concept model.
Yeah,
with
I think we got
right
down
there.
here is where we started really working together on like the concept where we had features, elements of both, but slightly smaller scale. This was like symmetrical before we posed it.
Yeah.
Lots of spikes, lots of horns all over this guy.
Yeah.
And then it was time to pose this.
And then we got up here to something we really liked. And it is right here.
Yeah.
And Gian modeled up this person that's 5'8".
Yep, just for scale. We had
so we could see through some plants in there, just so it had some vegetation, so it looked natural. And this is where we were both like, we got to do something.
Pretty sweet.
We got to do something like this.
And then we presented it to the team, and they were like, "All right, I guess we're making a dinosaur."
Yeah, and I feel like that went really well. We got some different poses, and then how we decided to split up the 3D printed parts.
Yep.
So we kind of get into, all right, how do we actually make this now? And having this board on here, having this one spot where we just put everything was amazing. Because at one point it was like, oh, maybe we could mount it like this. And then this is what I really want to talk about for a second. This is what I call the bread slicer.
Yep.
This is how I visualized it going together. And Sal and Chinlu did projects like this before, where they take the cross section and glue everything together to form the whole shape.
Yep.
So, but this helped for me to be able to visualize, like, okay, how is the leg going to support? You know, we need a bone structure inside. We can't just start with foam. The thing's going to fall over, right?
Right.
So
we decided pretty quickly we were going to have to do some welding. and that meant that Jason was going to buy a welder. I feel like you were looking for an excuse to,
I totally,
we got him a welder.
I needed a welder in my life, and it was a perfect opportunity to, you know, convince Crystal, my wife, that, hey, you know, this has got to happen. We need a welder to move on with life. But we had to look into armatures. So most sculptures have bones inside, and those are called armatures. And we were both researching it, and then I was terrified about all the different miter joints and cuts because I'm dealing with steel, not wood. It just complicates things, and steel's forever, you know?
It is forever.
So Gian had this idea, okay, to go with a steel 2-inch solid ball as the joint, okay, just like a hip socket joint, and all that works.
And then no angled cuts. We just fit it right up. We get it, as long as we get the angle right and we can register it against a jig of some kind, which you'll see soon. We were able to make our lives a little bit easier with the
so check this out. Gian started putting this together, and just to do the pivot, you know, on the fly with the straight shot tube made life so much easier, we thought, once we got to fabrication. So here's some more of the armature coming together.
Yeah, some of our jig
talk
system.
about this guy. This is a good one.
You'll see more of this during the demo too.
I really like this shot here.
Yeah, we had to figure out some way of lining everything up accurately and not having to do all these complex angles. So we had jigs for each limb, but we also had like a main jig structure for the entire spine, and it just kind of worked out.
It was amazing. I was terrified how we were going to do this, and Gian and Sal, they used math in the software to actually come up with the solution. I was going to crawl around on the ground and try to come up with the solution, and it wouldn't be as smooth as this. And we'll get to the base, how we welded everything together, a little bit later. But yeah, let's so here's the cut list of all the different parts and all the different labels of each one. Left arm, how it goes together, right arm. So this was important. I remember we had a separate meeting just to discuss the weight and stress points of this. And I remember Rachel came up with the idea to add another piece of steel here. So inside that dinosaur's neck is 3 inch and a quarter steel.
I think that's the tail right here. And then we've got the neck is like right down here. And we had these plates that were like the mounting points for like both where the tail is coming out and where the head attaches to. So just made our lives a little bit easier. And then, I don't know, Jason, this isn't where it ended. Like we had foam to cut. We had to assemble this thing, but.
This was just the overall board and the idea. Like this is a magic wheelchair build.
Yeah.
Seeing how they use the XPS foam gave us inspiration on how to use the XPS foam. And yeah, let's see. Let's go over.
Yeah, we had to get the whole scene, right? Or actually, sorry, before we get to that, we had to discuss color, texture.
Right. Yeah. So we really liked, this was a quick concept sketch I did a while ago, but I just liked the blues, teals, and tan underbelly of it. And then Gian and I came up with like this color scheme right here. And that's what we kind of stuck to, that dark gray, the teal, and the tan. You know, almost black, actually, dark green, I meant to say. Wow. And then as far as texture goes, I was really after this guy here. I like this guy. I'm not sure what he is. He's cool. Kind of would like to have one that just kind of travels with me.
Yeah, but this was another awesome one, too.
This was terrific to look at. All that scaling around the eyelids and the tiny beads. Like, that was what we were going for. One time. And this is beautiful. This is my house. Okay.
Beautiful. We used AI to generate a bunch of other concepts and whatnot. And then, was there anything else? Yeah, texture.
What was the one? We had this guy. We love this guy.
We really did. I wasn't sure how we were going to get feathers and scales into this thing, but who knows?
Brilliant.
Maybe we'll make Frank a friend next year and he'll have some feathers. We'll see.
Yeah.
But but it didn't end just at the dinosaur, though, right? Like we still had,
This was
realistic
an important part. Luke really wanted to do the eyeball, and make it realistic. I kept going back to this gold, like
yes,
stylized eyeball with detail. So he used this as the driving force of take some inspiration from this, but make it your own, you know? So it was, he was on this lean board.
Huge thank you to Luke for all the work that
absolutely
that he did. It was amazing. The eyes turned out better than I could have ever expected.
And then right here, this is all the same board, you guys. So like this whole thing is just a giant board in space, and you can put anything you want, like links, sticky notes, phone numbers, whatever.
We broke the record for like the world's largest lean board.
Yes.
And it just keeps getting bigger by the day. But we wanted a whole scene around this. That's what I think a lot of the rest of the lab or a lot of the rest of the team is working on right now, are the different elements to set up the entire scene for the dinosaur. And there was a ton of different inspiration.
This is Chinlu's mood board, her, Rachel, and Sal been working on. And here's like a sketch of what they visualize the plants being like. You know, we wanted like a tropical, you know, oasis type of thing, maybe a nest, you know, it's protecting eggs, or about to eat them. You know, maybe Frank wants us like an omelet, you know?
And then the footprint too. I'm excited to see that, a little bit of a puddle. But,
sure. But yeah, this is
gonna be sweet when it's
so
done.
cool. Yeah, the footprint's awesome. So it's a great place to just use it as a mood board or an art board to keep all those ideas swirling around in one place. So like I said, I use it for all my projects.
Yeah.
It keeps me organized, and organization.
As organized as Jason can be.
It's always
3D
needed.
lean board helped.
That's it.
But I think it's time, maybe in about 10 seconds, we'll meet you at the desk and start looking at how we actually use the software to build Frank.
We're back.
We're here
in a new location. Just 10 steps to the side, but
hey, absolutely.
So we've got some really cool stuff in the software to show. Now we're going to show a little bit of SolidWorks and a little bit of X Design. So SolidWorks is the reason why we're here. You all know just how amazing SolidWorks is, you know, across everything that you can do with it. It's just absolutely incredible. And like Dan mentioned before, there is the cloud services that's included with subscription. So you get share and markup capabilities, you get store and revise, and you also can go the next level up, more advanced kind of data management where you manage and control everything. So you'll see a lot of that built into how we were able to, you know, design a dinosaur.
Yeah.
But then we also used a lot of X Design, like more than we initially thought we were. We kind of thought we were just going to start with sub D to do concepts, but we ended up doing almost.
So I want to add something to this. Like, I was really in love with X Shape, and to be able to sub D model anything and like really into it. But one thing I wasn't super familiar with was X Design. So at the beginning of the year, you know, like at the start of every year, New Year's resolution, you know, lose a bunch of weight. Haven't quite done that. But the other one was learn X Design.
Yeah.
And working with you on this project and seeing the capabilities of X Design blew me away. I wasn't expecting that. And it's a browser-based software that has more horsepower than anything. You know, it's amazing.
It's true. And we're going to see a lot of it in action today. And I've kind of separated it into 3 main chapters. So there's like the initial design of the dinosaur. There's then kind of moving on to the construction. So we were done with sub D modeling and kind of our iterative process. We move on to actually constructing it. So preparing the model for welding, the jigs, doing some multi-body modeling, some master modeling techniques. And then, of course, we had to add the finish work, the texture, the paint, all of the stuff that really brought Frank to life in the very end, which was some software involved and some, you know, artistry by hand. So, I mean, I think it was mostly you doing a lot of that fine detail in your shop for like months.
It was a little overwhelming at times. But I had my wife, you know, talk me off the roof a few times and just kept going. But it was like, okay, we're going to texture a shoulder today. We're going to texture an arm. We're going to texture just calves today. Calf day. And I'd literally wake up out of the bed and I'd be like, it's calf day. Yeah. And I'd take off running and I'm in the garage in my boxers, like just, you know, like putting calf textures on.
Yeah, that's a great image right there.
Pretty much what happened, you know? But it was like any obstacle in life, if you break it down into little small facets, it's a lot easier to digest.
It's doable. You know, we made it happen.
With enough green tea, anything is doable. Okay?
I think Frank is the reason you're back on coffee now, but we'll talk about that later.
It calms me down a little.
So I want to start talking about sub D. Now, a lot of you have seen this before. Jason, you're in sub D all the time. It starts with the primitive shape or surface. We use symmetry for almost all of the design process until we got to posing. So we can turn symmetry on. A lot of it is making manipulations with the robot, but building out the mesh, doing things like extrusion, extruding and subdividing faces to build out the mesh. And as you can see, we're kind of starting with the head here. That's how I started, at least. You got to start with the face, and then the robot is like the main manipulator that we use to translate, to rotate, to scale. So we would use just a bunch of robot manipulations to just kind of massage this into the shape of a dinosaur.
A bunch of little steps.
Yes.
For the greater result, right?
Yes, exactly. So you're going to see us call out a handful of tools here, but not that many in sub D because it's just applying those fundamental tools across like a variety of different situations. Creases.
Boom.
We had creased edges all over this model as we kind of like define the mouth here.
Look how much that changes the surface. You know?
It does. It does. We do some scaling.
Non-uniform scale.
Yep. We can use those plane handles to kind of go in two directions. And then like we extruded before, we can also subdivide faces to add more like localized detail in the model, just in specific areas. And that's where we started to get that horn or like spine kind of thing off the snout.
Yep.
But there's a nice example of rotating with that robot manipulator and the cage view. The cage view is one of those things that's just, it's very important. It's the underlying mesh from which the curved surface is generated from. And if it looks good in the cage, it's going to look great in the final surface. You reorient the robot all the time. Like I'm always switching. I know you love going to screen, right? I like XYZ quite a bit. So I changed to XYZ. So I'm only using the arrows in that direction.
And that's what's great about it. It's customizable to the user. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. You do what fits your workflow best and we make it easy. One of the options that I didn't cover initially with creases was that you can actually adjust the smoothness and like the severity of the crease. So we can almost like a fillet.
That last move was nice.
Yeah, that where we kind of narrowed out the snout.
And then the nostrils, my favorite part.
The nostrils, dude. We had to just subdivide, insert more loops, and then just kind of jam that sucker a little further back to create that depth effect.
This is amazing. Just watching this sped up, like this is so cool.
Just waiting. I mean, we're seeing. So this is actually, we're doing it a little bit different than I usually do a demo. This is from 1 2.5 hour recording of my first iteration on this. So
step one,
exactly. A line by line is one of those tools that like it saves you in a bind. It lets you take any selection of faces or edges and get them all in line. And then we just start sculpting out the neck shape here. Wow. Again, applying the fundamentals again, subdividing faces, extruding, inserting more loops, using the robot.
Push and pull.
Exactly. And at this point, it's still kind of looking more like a herbivore.
You can grab a face, a vertice, or an edge, or an entire loop.
And selection tip right here, a really good selection tip. If you start a window selection and then you return to where you started, you can now make is it lasso? Lasso selection.
Head. Yeah.
Which is just a really nice tool that on the fly, you can have it set to lasso selection mode the whole time, or you can just switch on the fly like that. And
love it. You showed me that last year and I use it all the time.
Yeah, it's a really good one. And then as we get the head in a nicer shape, I think, we get some creases. We want to start making this guy a little bit more real. And we're going to end up moving the robot. So this is one thing. I don't know if you knew how to do this before, Jason, but basically when we click the center of that robot, we deactivate it. And then we're going to push it over to the back of the jaw so we can kind of hinge it.
Get out of here.
Yeah, we're hinging. We're making the mouth open just like that, just by moving the robot. And then we've got more just tinkering around to do. I'm cutting through so much of the work we actually did. Like I said, this was 1 2.5 hour session, but wait till you see the end result. It's pretty incredible. So we get a nice more subdivision, get that kind of cranium piece going.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, box selections, window selections. I know you love using selection filters.
Sure.
So we can go from faces, edges, vertices, you know, and
You
you
just
can
got to remember when you have them on.
Yes.
Okay. Because you will lose your mind if you're like, why is it working? It's because your selection filter is activated.
And that's one cool tip is you can set the selection filter to stay on, or you can click it once and have it just like it'll stay that way for one selection, and then it'll revert back to normal after that, which is it's pretty nice. It just makes you really fast. That's what we're about with Sub D. We want to be fast. So throughout the whole time, we're gonna just slowly, I didn't know for sure if I was gonna do it this way, but I had the head close enough and I was like, all right, let's just see if we can get a whole body in there.
Love it.
So this was all one subdivision surface that we slowly sculpted into a full body. Is that kind of the same approach you had with the T-Rex too?
For sure. I think it was. Well, you know what? I don't remember. Might have been.
It
all happened really fast. There was a lot of caffeine involved. So a lot of bright colors. They were great.
Shortcut rings. Do you use shortcut rings?
I do, because of you. You taught me.
That left mouse button, click and drag, and then you've got all these other commands. So you don't have to go hunting down the right icon. They're literally right where your cursor is. And those change from environment to environment. So you're as fast as you can be, no matter whether you're in Sub D, whether you're in normal part design, whether you're in a sketch or an assembly. And yeah, just some great time-saving tips here for you Sub D modelers out there.
Here come the legs, quadriceps coming down at you.
Exactly. Yep. We got some quads. We got some calves.
Hams.
And then this is where we started sculpting feet, started sculpting individual toes and whatnot.
Not my favorite part.
No, that was
dinosaur feet are a challenge.
It was tedious. It took some time to get it looking the way we wanted it to look, but those feet, after some massaging, after some good work on there,
They turned out incredible.
they did. And we had to do so many creases to get them to look more realistic, to break up those surfaces. And it came in handy later because we had to split off the claws and the toenails and the hand and the like fingernails so that we could print them separately. But yeah, this turned into a pretty big Sub D surface. And for those of you looking in the chat right now, let us know, what's your best guess? How many faces do you think was in the final version of this Sub D? Faces, I'll give you a hint. The number of faces and the number of vertices are actually the same. So
interesting.
yeah, what do you think the total number is? Let us know in the chat and we'll catch back up with you later. So we're back in this model.
Is
All
it
right.
7?
It's surprisingly, it's actually a little bit more than 7.
8, 9.
You're getting closer. You're getting closer. But
Okay.
we did have enough where we had
You're
a
doing
really
great.
high density mesh. And this is where one of the tools called the working zone, we can define a working zone so that we're not messing with anything else that we don't want to. We can just do a nice lasso selection of that leg. And then we're only working on that leg. The rest of the surface is not going to get touched.
It stays fixed.
It stays fixed. And this is where we kind of moved on to posing. We started posing the limbs here. And this is where I think we used a lot of moving the robot and doing those kind of hinge point selections again to get those ankles and knees kind of in a good position.
Sure.
That looked like a realistic pose here. So that working zone helped quite a bit.
Yeah, that's
one of the other tools that we use a lot with high density subdivision surfaces is called the working zone.
Soft selection.
Sorry, soft selection.
Yeah, I got you.
We got soft selection. So that means basically whatever you select, you can extend the influence.
Right.
And you see that colored, we've got our selected entities are in blue, but then you kind of see the red, purple, blue.
Fades out.
So it kind of trails off and you can change how that behaves.
You can change that threshold so it can
Exactly.
be less or more. In this case, you want just to move the head and flex the neck a little bit.
Exactly. So we had it set for a few faces and then we could move the entire head and it would move the neighboring vertices so that they kind of stay in line with the general form we're looking for. But another great set of tools that are there when we need it. This was a fun part of it, posing and refining.
Yeah. Going into the cage.
The cage, C key on your keyboard. You can toggle between the cage view, the surface view, or the cage and surface, which I think is an Eric Beatty special, a request from Eric to have that third option in there. But yeah, it was a lot of application of the same tools over and over to get the shape that we wanted until we had times where some of the more advanced tools like arc bend.
Crazy.
So arc bend is one of those tools that like I don't use it every day, but
perfect time.
Exactly. Like it's
Dinosaur
there when
tail.
you need it. When you have a dinosaur tail, you're gonna need arc bend.
I do it the old school way. I'm like each edge loop, rotate. But look how perfect that is.
It is a perfect arc. And then we could use soft selection to continue to get that. We really needed to curl around that tail just for spacing. We had to make sure that it would fit through a door, but we'll see more on that later.
Did we have to make sure?
Kind of. I mean, we were a little free with it, but we made it happen. We added some color to this model. How to see how it would look with a little bit more detail, a little bit of texture. And one of the things that we use a lot, and I'm going to talk about ordered geometrical sets quite a bit, but we use these in sub D so that we're removing like the order dependency of features. So like if we added a nice rock base after the fact, and then we wanted to make changes to the dinosaur, well, because all the features are order dependent, we wouldn't see the rock base if it's in like that same
stack.
Exactly. So that's why we can create separate ordered geometric sets so that we can still make edits to the dinosaur and change that posing and everything without having to, change the position of it or anything. But this was just my first concept. Again, 2.5 hours to get to this point, and now it's time to iterate.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Time to make some cool stuff. So that was my first concept. Jason's model here, his first version, symmetrical T-Rex, and then actually posing it too. Added a little color in there, but not the final colors just yet. But we had these different options that we were working on separately.
This one was, had a lot of muscle structure to it and a lot going on, and it was 65 feet tall. So it was getting a little aggressive.
Yeah, we were a little bit worried about how we could possibly build it, but we ended up converging. We converged on this design that we saw a little bit in the lean board. And then we started posing it once we were happy with it.
That's beautiful.
We started posing it, and we didn't even have teeth or anything in there yet. But once we got the teeth and the spikes, the tongue, the gums, which we ended up redoing those. We'll talk about that.
Started with
later.
a box, just started with a box and just kept making edits to it.
Exactly.
And every inch, a little bit more detail,
a little bit more.
Look at this
here and there.
It's super awesome. There it is.
And that's the final version that we ended up going with to start splitting it into pieces to actually manufacture this thing. So the final one that we worked on, it looks beautiful. I love just looking at it. Yeah. But how did we actually manage all these different iterations? Well, one of the benefits of cloud services, whether you use SolidWorks or you use XDesign, we've got revisions and branches built in. So that's kind of the store and revise level of the data management included with the cloud. So whether you, again, SolidWorks or XDesign, you can get this same view where you can see the branching and the revisioning. You can see it visually. You can make new revisions right on the fly or just open it up.
Can go back to old iterations.
Exactly. You can merge different parts of different designs. And yeah, that was one way that we were able to stay organized with it. But Jason and I were chronically passing models back and forth to each other. We're working on the same one. So being able to just copy a link to that physical product and then shoot it over to Jason was perfect, because then I just send it to you on chat, you open it up, and then we're good to go. We're just passing it back and forth. And when you would make changes, we got notifications. Yeah. We've got built-in notifications to see when that happens. So look, Jason saved some changes. We get notified when that happens. And
this was so exciting for me, because this is why I always say the software is alive. When I would work on it and then save it and unlock it, and then he would work on it, I was so eager to get to my computer and see what it was.
Yeah.
And see what Gian did. And that's where it's like software isn't stale anymore. It's alive. He's working on it, I'm working on it at the same time. And it's how we progress.
It
really is.
And locking and unlocking, it kept us organized. So we're not stepping on each other's toes, but we're able to collaborate together, and we can request to unlock right from there as well. Sends Jason a nice message saying, hey, it's your time is done, man. It's time to pass the buck to me.
Tap out.
But Jason's unlocked the following components, so we get those dynamic notifications the whole time, and we're able to just work together on this. I don't think that I've ever worked on the same part with somebody as easily as we were able to here. And then locking it is just a click away. So we used locking and unlocking. We used revisions and branches, and we were able to come up with a pretty cool concept that we were really happy with. And we were able to actually get it through the door, which is good. But here's the part where we brought this model from Sub D into SolidWorks. Okay, so there's a couple different ways you can do it. We can do either the 3D Experience component method, which gives you that multi-CAD assembly. So like SolidWorks assembly with some SolidWorks parts, but also some parts from XDesign or 3D Experience parts. But then we could also, if you wanted to add downstream features in SolidWorks, you could go with the other option, but we just used it as a visual reference for now in SolidWorks. And then we did some in-context modeling after we got that guy in place. We were able to just add a new component, and this is where the armature, this is the dawn of the armature, making a new component right in the context of our SolidWorks part. And then we plan to use some weldments to get a nice frame in there, a nice armature with, what do we use? 2-inch, 1 3/4 inch steel piping?
1.25 with 1/8 inch wall thickness.
Yeah.
And I was a big advocate of, you know what? This guy's got to have 3 points of contact to the floor, because most of these style of dinosaurs that run around on 2 legs, it does make rigging the inside where the armature is extreme challenge. You have weight going forward and back. So I was really excited that we had one hand in the dirt, ready to strike, recoiled, ready to go.
It made for a cool pose, but it also made it a little bit easier to, fabricate
and distribute the weight. So we knew it was going to be solid. The last thing we need is Frank falling over,
Yeah. So we built a solid frame starting in SolidWorks with a nice 3D sketch, and then just used the weldments tools to turn this 3D sketch into structural members, which I kind of go back and forth if I would do a bunch of planes and 2D sketches or stick with the 3D. But nevertheless, we ended up with a nice base for adding our structural members. Looks like we got a question about why does Frank have such big biceps? And Jason, I'll let you answer that one.
Okay. So Gian actually spent a lot of time flexing in front of the mirror to capture his biceps perfectly, and he kind of brought that in to Frank's body.
We still had to juice them up a little bit more.
Right. No, you know what? It was just, why not give this dinosaur muscles and make him look jacked like he's going to just start tearing stuff apart, So we gave him some exaggerated biceps. I'll admit it was fun. That part was done with a lot of saw work.
A lot of saw. We'll get to that, but we're still on the armature right now. We're making new groups of our different weldments here, but all with the same cross-section member. So I started with just 3 groups, one for like the spine and the hips, one for each leg and each limb here, each leg and each arm. And then corner treatments are super easy to take care of with the weldments tools in here.
Sure.
You can get a miter joint, you can get a butt joint, you can reverse the butt joint. Doesn't matter, whatever you need to do. That's the reason why we had to go with weldments, man. But we initially planned on miters, but we did end up going a different direction. But while we're in here, we'll show you've got additional options to like customize the different corner treatments in here as well. But now that we're done adding structural members for the armature itself, we had to have that frame. We had to have a nice square or rectangular frame at the base to hold all the weight here.
One of the nice heavy base. You want the weight down low.
Yes. And if you're new to weldment, if you know weldments, you probably already know this, but if you're new to weldments, or if you haven't heard of this, that locate profile button down at the bottom is a life changer. You just choose wherever you want the cross section to be based on your layout sketch.
Yeah.
And it just repositions the whole thing right there. And then we trimmed up some members, do the trim and extend members so that we didn't have intersection going on from the frame to the armature members.
Okay.
So yeah, you know how that works,
Very
Jason.
nice. Yeah.
You take some members that you want to trim, you take the members you want to do the trim, and then you let the software take care of the rest.
Yeah. There's no cutoff wheel needed at this point.
No, there's not. Cloud services was integrated the whole time because this was all stored in the platform. So all of these designs were stored in the cloud, both the SolidWorks assembly, the armature that we just made, and the original Frank, the original Dinosaur, which by the way, was it you called him Frank initially, right?
Yeah, in the chat they want to know why he's called Frank. I was in the garage working by myself, and I was fumbling around with his mouth insert that Chin Lu designed, where magnets hold it to the roof of the mouth so we can get in there and put the eyeballs in. And I was fiddling with that, and I dropped it, and then I caught it, and then one of his teeth cut into my knuckles. And I said, some other word, Frank, why'd you do that? And so there I was in my garage talking to a fictional dinosaur known as the Slugosaurus, and I named him Frank by accident. You know,
hey, it's stuck. He does look like a Frank.
Yeah, it's Frank, and it's just like Frank bit me, and that's where he got his name.
But back to our model in SolidWorks. So we used locking and unlocking in this too. As you can see, my models are locked right here in that side panel. Control who has access to it and everything. And then we're able to just save it, store it to the cloud, and we organize it into bookmarks. So that's a big part of the store and revise functionality, is being able to organize all of your data into bookmarks or bookmark folders. And they're a little bit more powerful than folders because you can have one file that's in many bookmarks, whereas on the desktop, you know, it's kind of stuck in that one location.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
Yeah, bookmarks are extremely valuable. You know, I fought it for a while, just not using them, but it creates chaos. So from now on, new project, new bookmark, that's where it is.
There we go. And then it was time for documentation. Open this part on its own and make some drawings out of this frame. This is a very, very early preliminary version of the frame that we still wanted to get a preliminary cut list. Okay, we want to make a drawing from this part and then start to lay it out on a typical sheet. Drop in some views, change the drawing scale and whatnot. We only really needed the one view and a cut list, but while we're setting this up, how many total hours do you think we spent between the two of us on modeling this?
You know, it's a great question. I got at least, I don't know, I'd be guessing, I'd say 30 hours in the T-Rex.
30, yeah. 30 hours on the T-Rex?
Maybe. Or would you rather me say 1 hour?
I'm just going to lowball it.
Truth?
Yeah, man. How many?
7 minutes.
7. That sounds about right. Yeah. And if my manager is watching too, yeah, this only took about like an hour for me. So don't worry about this. Yeah. All right.
Quick when you're having fun, who really counts the time?
It's,
you know?
Yeah. I mean, X-Shape, the sub-D tools in X-Design, it's like sketching. It's like drawing.
It's
like
so simple.
It's a fun, like enjoyable process.
I remember surface lofting and like waiting for it to generate. And like, I remember really complex.
Changing all your setup sketches.
Freeform modeler, whatever. It was like, X-Shape is fast. It moves with you. So as fast as you pull the surface over, it happens as soon as you grab and pull it or scale it.
Instantaneous.
So the speed is there.
Change the drawing scale on the fly. We did have to eventually, we had to change this view a little bit. This is a quick little tip where you can actually use the 3D drawing view tool to, like, you've got an isometric view and you can just kind of rotate it right on the drawing.
Wow.
It's like a hidden feature that I feel like not a lot of people know about. But
I did not know it did that.
It's pretty
I thought
sweet.
Once it was a drawing, it was flat and done.
No, it's not, man.
That's amazing.
And we had to get it in this position so that we could see all the members when we add our cut list. So the cut list was the key to the kingdom on this one. We had to add that table that has all of the elements for us. And yeah, we start off with the normal cut list that just has, you know, your item number, quantity, description, and length. But we added a handful more columns to this so that we could include, at this point, we were still thinking mitered corners. So we were like, okay, we've got the angle on one end, we've got the angle on the other end, and then we've also got the rotation between those angles. So luckily, SolidWorks takes care of that for us with those column properties.
Sure.
And you can just add them. They're already built in. The angles at each end and the angle rotation. Then I think that our last touch was just adding some balloons. Auto Balloon took care of it for us. Adds all the balloons that line up with our item numbers. again, like if you've used weldments and drawings, you've probably seen a lot of this before, but maybe you get a couple cool tips in here. Love those magnetic lines, being able to adjust everything. And then another part of what you get with cloud services, if you're not ready to store all of your design data in the cloud just yet, but you still want to share it with the cloud, well, you can use the share button right in that lifecycle and collaboration tab of SolidWorks that will appear once you activate cloud services. So we upload this as a PDF to our 3D drive where we can add comments. We can share it with our other team members. In this case, I think I sent it to Sal to take a first look at this and ask him what he thought of it. But
that was a wise choice.
Yes. I mean, I was going to ask you.
I'm glad you didn't send this to me. I might have panicked.
Yeah. Well, Sal didn't. He took, while he takes a look though, we'll go back to our original model in XDesign with built-in data management in both XDesign and SolidWorks. We can look at more info in the model, like the actual like metadata of each model itself. And one of the big pieces of this is relations. Like if you've used, everyone here has probably used SolidWorks before and changed the name of a part or changed its location, and then all of a sudden your relations break. But the good thing about the cloud is relations are managed automatically for us, and we can view them in this visual way. We can make changes from here, but the key takeaway here is that you don't have to go hunting around for the right file name or you worry about which folder it's in, what the name of it is. If you change it, you can change the data, and the relation, that link from between assemblies, parts, and drawings is managed for you automatically. So we've got this SolidWorks assembly. It's got a XDesign surface for the dyno, and then it also has the frame, and we can open right here from relations and still make changes in the context. So this is in XDesign. We've got a multi-cat assembly from SolidWorks assembly with parts from both SolidWorks and XDesign inside, and we've got it open in XDesign. So the rule of thumb is you make changes in the original authoring app. So we open this up in XDesign and we can still make changes to our sub-D surface, change that transparency, and then, push and pull to make sure that we don't have too much interference or have structural members bleeding through.
Yeah, this is when it got real, when I could start seeing the bones come into place
Yes.
for the armature. I was like, okay, we're doing this. This is happening.
We had the armature there. We can move around the sub-D surface so that it kind of fits the armature. We're kind of massaging from both ends to make it work the way we need it to. But to be honest, we ended up going in a completely different direction than the mitered joints. So you'll see in here, we ended up going with steel balls.
Here.
Yeah. Let's show back to the, we've got these little steel spheres. They're heavier than you'd think. 2-inch steel spheres. And what is this? Inch and a quarter.
Yep. Steel tubing. This is what we would run handlebars out of. So I knew it was going to be strong enough for a Dinosaur armature. A little overkill, with that 1/8-inch wall thickness. But why not make it strong enough? Say you wanted to put a car on top of Frank, Say you want to do that. Why not?
We could.
But
yeah.
check.
Frank can hold up a car.
Like I said before, this was Gian's idea of how easy it was to have like a bone and then a pivot joint and then just roll this around to get into position and then tack that right on there with the MIG gun. So that was key to our success on this, because there was no way I was going to be able to hit all those miters.
Yeah.
I would have been with the cutoff wheel, just the chop saw.
It would have taken forever.
Going nuts. And to get each angle, like I would have needed more help on the alignment to weld it. And this gave us the flexibility to move around before we tacked it into place. So bravo for coming up with that. And this is solid steel. And the best part about this was probably trying to hold these on the belt sander to get
that was tough.
to get the scale off so we
Your
could
fingers
actually weld
recovered
it.
yet?
Yeah, and like a couple of them shot across the garage floor more than a few times.
It looks like we got one question about updates from SolidWorks. So the updates you saw from one part to another in XDesign, those do work in XDesign. As of right now, we don't have the same notification. There is a level of notification when a save is pushed, but it's slightly different. But I know our amazing R&D team has that in their plan. So stay tuned. I know it's coming at some point. It's just a matter of time. And I want to move back to our SolidWorks model here, or our X Design model.
Okay.
We used ordered geometrical sets for all these just as folders. So we use them. Here's another way that we use them, not just to remove the order dependence, but just to organize the different parts of the armature, the balls, the gussets, and
it was a super streamlined way to deal with this. Like if you didn't want the surface on, you turned it off. You didn't want the foam on, you turned it off.
Exactly. And instead of all those mitered corners, you know, with the steel balls, we used a series of jigs and fixtures that were cut out of plywood to make this happen. We had additional ones for like the neck piece. So that was the plate that the head goes on. And then here's the tail. So this was a sacrificial set of jigs, but it allowed us to get that.
It's a beautiful shot right there, man.
Yeah,
you can see the engineering and the hard work, but then you can also see how simple it is. You know,
yes,
it's not scary. Like when you first start talking about doing an armature, it sounds scary, but like watching you break this down and work with Sal on developing this jig and fixture system, it takes it step by step, and my brain can process it.
Yeah, we added some support so it would be okay. It would be like structurally sound enough. We had these different, so not, you just saw the spine, but we also had separate fixtures for each limb and the tail. And here's a nice shot of those limb and tail fixtures that you'll see soon. Sal, I think this is my favorite part of the whole process, is that Sal turned these into like this crazy constellation in the base frame of what Frank is sitting on right now. Yeah. So you'll see that soon, but it was pretty cool to watch this come together. And before we get too far away from Sub D, I know we had one question, or we asked you how many faces you thought were in that final Sub D. It's 1,900 faces and vertices. Same number for both. I don't know how it ended up being exactly 1,900, but it did.
1,900. Yeah. Wow. What did I guess earlier when you asked me?
I don't know. I don't know if you had an answer.
2,500.
20. Close.
You said I was way off. I'm like,
yeah.
That's
close enough.
600. Yeah.
I was close enough. Same in the ballpark. Yeah. So we had to reinforce this with some gussets too. Just honestly, I don't even know if we needed to at the end of the day, but like, I'm glad we did, because we don't want Frank going anywhere. So had to export some DXFs of both the gussets, of all the plywood parts as well, all the jigs and fixtures. And we stored all of these in 3D drives. So this is the same place that original drawing ended up that we shared with Sal.
Yeah.
So we have that generic cloud storage system that we were able to put it in, and share it over to him with.
And that right click is so helpful. Right click, export as DXF.
Yes.
It works.
Yeah, we've got them organized in a nice folder. One of the things I really love about 3D Drive and storing them here is that you don't need to download them to view them. You can view 2D files, 3D files, DXFs, DWGs, solid parts, steps, STLs, pretty much all your most standard 2D and 3D formats you can view in here without having to download them or open up in a separate app.
And it would not be a SLUGME build or project if Todd wasn't water jetting or laser cutting metal parts and shipping them to us.
You can say that again.
Thank you, Todd,
yes,
for hooking that up.
So we sent these over to Todd. He was able to get those cut for us. Amazing, just in time for us to do some welding in your shop. And that just about wraps up like our initial, like original designing of the Dinosaur itself. So that's kind of like the first chapter here. And don't worry, we're going to do less software, more making now, but still a little bit of software.
Yeah.
Let's move on to.
Well done, man. That was like one of the most interesting software presentations I've seen. I might be biased because I was part of it.
You were a part of it.
But just seeing that transformation from a box, it literally started with a box in 3D space on a browser-based software, and then just you drove that whole thing all the way through.
Turned it into a full-on Dinosaur and structure and everything. And here's
good stuff.
Here's one of my favorite parts, seeing that constellation that Sal created out of plywood. So this was the base. This was the base of the entire frame, but he also set these up so that we could use it to create each member or each limb and tail.
This is amazing what Sal did. It made life so much easier welding this together. And it was a surprise. I feel like it was a surprise for me.
you know, because I didn't know it was coming. And then all of a sudden it was there. And I was like, wow. I remember taking the tarp off there and just being like blown away.
And then it was time to start welding.
Yeah.
We used that fixture just like the way you would expect on how it was intended. And one of the things here, you mentioned taking the scale off of it. So you see how like most of these members are like, they're almost black. They're like really dark, but then some of them are polished off. I didn't realize that.
Mill scale.
Yeah. The mill scale that we had to take off before starting to weld, and then going back and forth between the model and then the belt grinder.
Yep.
And
Just
then
getting that mill scale off and going right back to Sal's jig there and just, you know, welding it up, man. We got a MIG welder and just had at it, man.
Yeah, this is way harder than it looks right here.
Yeah,
trying
those
to
steel ball.
those things really wanted to just run around Jason's whole shop.
Yeah, and then they like to hit your feet too, which is really annoying.
Yeah, I did some welding. I hadn't done. I think I did welding like once while I was in college, and Jason gave me a little tutorial, and I can still see, so I'd consider it a success.
Yeah, and we ran out of welding gas 15 minutes into it, so Dan bailed us out.
Dan did. He came in clutch with some more welding gas. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, we had so much. This was a lot of. How much time do you think we spent just welding?
Enough.
Yeah.
It was enough time, just like enough.
At least a solid couple days, I'd say, right? Like
yeah, it was about a day, full day of welding.
Full day of welding.
And it was, you know, the elements get so hot, you have to back off, you know, 10 minutes on, 10 minutes off. So it's like, you don't really want to just rip through, because that's how you like burn things down, you know?
That is exactly how you burn things down.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that we were safe about that. And yeah, then I think that what we did next is we started to get the jigs ready to go. Or no, we just still got more welding here. I'm going to fast forward to getting to the jigs themselves. Yeah, so once we had
Sal.
Yeah,
look at them. I love it.
So we had that whole plywood set up, and I think other than a couple pivots, like a couple like slight discrepancies in the length that we needed, like it worked perfectly.
Like you gave me the cut list, so I had all the tubes cut ahead of time, but like I really tried to nail the exact number you gave me. But yeah, for the most part, this thing, it snapped together. There wasn't a real hiccup here, which is, it's unfortunate, because as a maker, I'm always looking for like, okay, what can we learn? But like this went together pretty smooth.
It did. And the only times there was maybe 4 members that we had to do a little bit of a cut at a joint like
fish
this.
mouth. Yeah, this had a fish mouth. That's why you can see me monkeying with it there. And I didn't really have a proper tool, so we were just sanding that fish mouth. Oh, look at that. Look at that guy. He looks like a welder, no?
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. This was probably
watch your eyes, right? I'm pretty sure we all got flash burn. Felt like sand was in our eyes, but we were good. You had to have the hoods down at all times, right?
Yep, you had to do it. And then once this was all done, we had to sacrifice.
Look at it.
Yeah, that's it with the jig. And then
Sal wanted to burn the jig off, right?
Yeah, we were thinking about rolling it into the driveway and just setting it on fire.
But we need the baseboard, so
yeah,
that would have been awkward.
Tough. So we took the Sawzall and just started cutting it into pieces. Got rid of that. Here's a nice shot of the gussets that went in next.
Okay.
Yeah. From Todd. And yeah, let's get back into the model for a little bit. Okay. I want to show a couple cool things that we did along the way. So like Jason showed before, we got people in here. We had a person. We used a lot of multi-body modeling, and we used those ordered geometrical sets to organize these, but we use them in a couple different ways. So the flexible component modeling in X Design makes it so that everything is just a physical product. Nothing's just a part or an assembly. Anything can be anything. And that also means that you can take any set of features in any part and then make them their own component. So we turned this person that was originally just in there for scale in the sub D, and now it's its own new physical product. We can move it around in our graphics area. We could reposition it, and then we could also like drag in more instances. We have a little crowd of people hovering around the dinosaur.
That's great.
And then we inserted more OGSs. This is where we started actually splitting it up into pieces, okay? Because we had foam, we had 3D prints, we had everything. So we first needed a new OGS to split things up. And this is where we use the insert geometry feature quite a bit, which if in SolidWorks, it's very similar to like the insert part feature. You know, you're just stealing the geometry from this particular set and throwing it into a separate part. And that really helped us so that we could modify it. We could split it up into pieces without having like a super long feature tree of like everything downstream. That S key shortcut keeps all of our most common commands right at our fingertips, like adding a plane on the fly to cut that head off.
Beautiful thing.
And then a lot of multi-body work here. So we have one solid body right now, but we use the S key. Don't forget command search, just like you have in SolidWorks. If you click the S key, just start typing, you'll find whatever command you need. In this case, we needed a nice split body command to split the head off of the rest of the body. But we did a lot of splits.
You did a lot of splits, because I remember I opened this up and I was like, what? Oh my goodness, he split the whole thing and everything was like ready for print. And I was like, okay.
And then
look at this.
Yeah, when we needed them to be in their own separate like OGS so that we could export like an STL of each one, we use the make body feature, which basically takes that head and it puts it into its own separate new ordered geometrical set, or OGS, for just the head. And we can hide and show the rest, and then we can see, you know, now we've got just a dino head. And that's almost what it was, minus the horns of what we had printed in the end.
Sure.
A lot of combine and subtract, a lot of Boolean operations like this, so that we could end up with good printable parts. So this is one where like we subtracted the teeth from the gums, and then we subtracted the gums from the head so that it could all kind of fit into each other. And then would you use glue to get those in? I think you had a screw at one point.
Yep, hot glue, I think, and a couple screws for the teeth.
Yep.
Those are heavy teeth. They want to come down hard. So
they do. That
went ahead and used fasteners for that.
Yeah,
highly recommended.
So we just showed we used a series of surfaces, cut the hands off, cut the head off, so that we could get 3D printable parts. And you can see we had to leave like a cavity in there to fit the eyes in.
That was Chinlu's idea. It was great because at first me and you were going to cut like the head in half and make it like this very obnoxious seam. Yeah. And she was like, why don't you go in through the roof of the mouth? And it was like, yeah, that's what we're doing. So trapdoor, roof of the mouth, eyeballs in.
More splits, cutting the limbs off. So this is where we got into foam. So we kind of were ready. We got most of the 3D printing prepped, but with foam was a great opportunity for us to use things like parameters. So similar to like global variables in SolidWorks, repeated values like the thickness of the foam that we knew we were going to use over and over again, but we might want to change it later and have it affect multiple features. We're able to create a parameter and set it to, because I think we were going back and forth between 2-inch and 3-inch foam.
Sure.
Again, shortcut rings from the right mouse button. So we're in a different environment now with parts. So you can activate any of those part features and get a nice pattern going, and then use that parameter that we set.
There we go. There's the bread slicer.
Yep. The bread slicer method in action. Just linear pattern a bunch of bodies. We use that parameter for the thickness so that when we changed it later, you know, it would update the rest of the model.
Makes sense.
And then I think we got a cool example. Once we split this, once we did the bread slicer, we did a bunch of sections. So there were a bunch of like solid sections where
this is the magic, man. Look at you.
And then just fading into skipping a few steps to when we had everything all split up into pieces.
I love that you did the same color.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, yeah,
like,
it had to be realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is foam. We had the white
cross-section view.
Nice cross-section view. And then when we update those parameters, like we update we had like a tolerance for around the pipe.
Yep.
So we update that, give it 1.5 inches instead, and now you see that grow. So you've got a little bit more clearance.
You want some more play there.
Yeah. And we kept it relatively tight, but you'll also see those registration holes too that we used to line up all those foam members. Definitely came in handy. And then again, we're just exporting a series of DXFs here. Same thing. We could export those DXFs into 3D Drive and then share them over with Sal, who got them on the CNC, and had separate folders for each of this. So 3D Drive it's like any generic cloud storage, you know. We just built a new folder. We had a folder for the gussets. We had a folder for the foam slices.
Yeah.
We had a folder for the 3D printed parts.
And just keep more organization you have, the better on a large project like this.
Exactly. Yep. And then we were able to just, without even leaving X Design or going anywhere else, we could share this entire folder with Sal so that he could get this on the CNC and start cutting these pieces, organize them all out on foam, nesting them. And then, yeah, we shared them over and then we were good to go. The last thing we had to export was 3D files. So we had the feet, the hands, and the head that we need to start splitting into pieces. We can export all your most common 3D file formats. So we got some STLs out of this. Again, putting them in our organized folders here. And we played a lot with the resolution too. Okay. So we went high resolution for those STLs that we sent out. And yeah, we cranked that up. We went to custom, cranked down the minimum.
Export that right out.
Yep. So we get nice high quality STLs. And then, yeah, we just had a folder with everything that we needed so that we could share it with all the different teams. Because then at this point, we had to get it out to everyone. We had to share the 3D printed parts with one group. And then here's the last thing I think I'll say about share is like, even if there's a member of the team who is not directly part of like your cloud, you can activate an external sharing link. So you can share it with anyone, regardless of what tools they have. And you can restrict the access based on email address. So like only certain people. We were really worried about intellectual property theft with Frank. Like, we didn't want just anyone to be able to get their hands on this model. But
there we go.
Yeah, I think that just about finished the sharing. And then Luke used a third-party 3D texturing tool to add this amazing texture to the feet.
Great.
So like some of the texture was in the 3D file, some of it was done by hand, and then some of it was done with some cool rollers that we'll show a little bit later. And sharing also gives you the opportunity to just mark things up too. You could draw right on the screen.
Add some notes.
Go back and forth with some comments, tagging teammates. Like this one was for Luke when we went back and forth on that design for the hand. And then it was on to physical manufacturing again.
Let's get it.
Let's go to foam. All right. We had Sal went crazy with the CNC.
He did.
All those nested. I want to be a dinosaur when I grow up. I love.
It's perfect.
So
look at that.
Yep. Had that
CNC router going.
Absolutely humming. I wonder how long it took just for the CNC. It's pretty quick, but
yeah.
How many? What did we use? 4 sheets?
3 inches foam. He had to have an end mill that was longer than 3 inches.
I think we overestimated how much foam we would need because we weren't sure how tight the nesting could be. So what was it? 4 sheets in total that we used?
Not sure.
Yeah. Maybe we'll get Sal to answer that later.
That's a good question for him.
But yeah, sorry, Sal. I know we ordered way more than we needed. So hopefully you guys can, we've got plenty more for the next dinosaur now. So we should be good.
Yeah, this is great. There's Dan in the shop and Sal popping out the pieces.
Yeah.
You know, it didn't make a mess at all in my garage. You know?
Yeah, we definitely didn't spend the majority of the time after just like cleaning everything.
Yeah, we had multiple shop vacs going, and so it was great.
Yeah, here's using the dowels
to align everything.
Yep.
And originally I thought we were gonna have to leave those in, but why? You know, we didn't need them in there. It would have just been extra weight.
Marking off the parts that we were gonna cut out.
Yep.
And then I think we get to the stakes in here soon that helps like lock everything together. Those like bamboo skewers. There's some liquid nail. Yeah. Got some.
There's the adhesive.
So stacking layer by layer, but there was a lot of foam, hand foam carving after this, which I think Sal thinks you and I are kind of nuts too, because he was like, we could just do 3D on the whole thing.
Yeah.
But Sal's like looking at me from over there, like, yeah, like you could have made this way easier on yourself, but you guys had to carve it by hand.
Yeah,
so.
some things you just need to carve by hand.
Sometimes you got to do it, and that's the next part. Woo! We got the Sawzall. We had these different sections that we slowly got onto the armature.
This was memorable.
Yes,
for sure.
Getting those parts on there was
the midsection dropped right on.
Yep. There's the neck
and the tail.
Starting to use those. What do you call those? It's like a cheese grater for foam.
Yeah, we'll call it the cheese grater.
Yeah, that's the method. We had like a nice long one there.
Rasp.
Too.
I call it a rasp.
A rasp. That's probably the
Luke
technical
calls
term.
it a sur foam, I think.
Yeah.
Sir.
Lots of spray foam. You know, great stuff. Should have been a sponsor for this build because we used like a ridiculous amount of it. Yeah, we locked it around the armature members, got it all glued up. The spray foam was expanding, so like it was. I was a little worried that it wasn't going to be like tight enough, that it might be able to like jiggle around the armature, but
it locks when that stuff sets. It's good, man.
It is. Yep, and that's just how we.
So this is how we got the volume. This is the inside. This is the XPS foam. There was a lot of materials that went into this. 2-inch steel spheres, obviously, 2-inch square tubing, 1.25 inch round tubing, plywood, XPS purple foam, Epsilon Pro, great stuff, liquid nails, 5-minute epoxy, 10-minute epoxy, 48 pounds of epoxy sculpt clay. And we got a lot more going. We haven't got to the printing yet.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to the printing just yet. Final weight. Looks like a question in the chat about the final weight. We calculated this in CAD that it was going to end up being around somewhere between like 350 and 400 pounds. I don't know. What do you think?
Real life, I think it's 400.
Yeah,
I do, but it could be 370. Let's go with 375.
Yeah, split the difference.
Yeah, we got a scale.
We'll try to get Frank on the scale a little bit later.
We could go to the grain elevator and see what they tell us.
Yeah, this was a lot of spray foam. There was so much work done by hand.
It was fun though. It was so fun seeing 4 people at once carve Frank. Because it was very blocky at the start.
It was.
And every tool was a possibility. This was great for getting rid of the great stuff, a fillet knife, and had this other knife with, the teeth on it, and just trimming it up and just constantly refining it.
Yeah, we had to make sure, like you said, man, this dinosaur is jacked. This dinosaur is it's not skipping dips or curls in the gym.
And this blade that Sal left me, for the Sawzall, it was super long, so I was able to flex it, and like bend and actually cut curves and dishes, those concaves with it, which was really handy. Favorite part right there.
Oh yeah, filling it. I mean, the good thing about it is nobody's gonna see it, so like we could just kind of fill it in with all the scraps and just
the whole bottom part of this dinosaur, the neck, the throat area, the belly, under the tail, was all left. There we go.
That's a great shot.
Was all left open, so we had to patch and fill all that space.
You like how I freeze framed it right here on
this is perfect. It's an ideal location. But you know what? You got to make it. You got to get down there. You got to get dirty.
You got to. So
you can't skip that part.
No, you can't. And the foam was probably one of the funnest parts of actually building this, doing some hand sculpting. But we haven't even talked about really the 3D prints yet. So Jason, I'm going to need you to get out of here, and I need the 3D printing expert Kirby over here. So we'll be back with you in like 10 seconds with Kirby. All right, Kirby, we're here. We built a dinosaur.
Yes.
You're the 3D printing expert.
Some would say.
You're the expert for today. So I know we used a lot of FDM. What were all the technologies that we used?
So we pretty much used every technology that's consumably available. We used FDM for a lot of the spikes, the feet, the hands, a lot of small elements. We used resin printing for the for the head, which is awesome. That thing was heavy.
Yeah.
And then we used a bit of MJF for creating nice little scale models and getting an idea of what it's going to look like in the final form. Taking your model and just 3D printing it just much smaller.
And the resolution on it came out amazing with the smaller versions that you made. Like, I'm taking one home.
Yes,
that's not a question.
Because it's powder based, you minimize the layers a lot, so that's great for some finer details. FDM is great for really quick things. I mean, we had some troubles with the eyeball, which we're going to get through. We're going to talk about a bit later.
Yeah.
And yes, that saved the day.
So let's show some of those hands that we got. So this was one of the this was just one of the hands that we didn't end up using the textured version on. We had those dowel holes that we did in there. One of the things that we talked about too is we didn't even have to add like the holes for the dowels or split it up into pieces in CAD, because a lot of the 3D slicers now, you could just do it right in that software.
Yeah, they've become so powerful these days that you can do so much just in the slicer. I mean, a lot of people think, you know, the parts are so big it doesn't fit on my printer. You can just split it up like that,
yeah,
glue it all together, and you can make really big things with a small desktop printer.
And I think that most of these parts you're seeing right now, the textured ones, were all made right on the lab here, which has like a 250 millimeter by 250 millimeter base. So yeah, it came in, the splitting tools made it possible.
Yeah, all print on Bamboo Labs printers, which, you know, is the go-to printer these days. Very affordable. So you can start making things in your, you know, in your garage, stuff like this.
Clamping this thing was not easy to find a good like surface, but it worked. You know, we
oh, definitely. I mean, like you wouldn't really want to print these in like SLS or MJF because it just becomes really heavy and very expensive.
Right.
So you kind of we used what technology was right for the application, and then the head was all done in resin. I mean, look at the size of that box.
Yeah.
Jason said it was like Christmas in July. This thing was insane. GoEngineer helped out with that. They used one of their Stratasys machines to print this head.
They had extra like clear material at the time, which is why this looks like an ice sculpture, but it looks so cool. And they got the tongue, the teeth, and the gums too.
Yeah, the teeth were used on a dental machine, a machine that's used to create dentures for people. So I know Jason complained while he was working on it and made his garage smell like a dentist office.
And those teeth, so they fit right into those cavities that we did that like combine subtract before.
Yes.
So we tried to make sure that everything would fit into place the way that we expected. And then the spikes, that was one element that we actually didn't have too much of it in the final model, because we had one of them in the model, and then we just did a bunch of scaling operations to make a bunch of different sizes. Again, not even in CAD. We just did it right in the slicer.
Yeah,
and then embedded them in the foam.
Yeah, and the detail they ended up creating with with all the epoxy in that looks amazing.
Yeah, these came out. I mean, here's our test eyeball piece that we had in there. There's it moving around a little bit.
Yeah, I've got one right over here as well. But we'll be talking about the eyeball a bit later, because Luke did an incredible job on that one.
Yes, no, huge props to Luke.
Masterpiece.
It really elevates the whole thing. If you've seen the pictures so far, like it looks cool, but like once you see it with the final eyeballs, it looks like it's going to eat you.
Yeah. But it's amazing. The access to 3D printing technology is insane. Either, you know, whether you have your own printer at home or using a bureau service like 3D Print UK, that gives you access to more of the industrial machines. There's so many different ways that you can print your parts.
Yeah.
So many different places you can go.
So we had those different parts that we assembled together. This particular foot was made, all those pieces in Waltham, but then here's a nice picture of the head for scale with Jason holding it up. It is gigantic. And once again, GoEngineer, huge shout out to them for creating the head for us. I don't even want to say how much they said it would cost a customer to do that, but they helped us out big time. Let's just leave it at that. And I think we've got some cool messages from GoEngineer that will roll right now for you.
Check that out.
Hey, Nick, thanks so much for the 3D prints for this Dinosaur project. It was insane just getting a giant box, and me and my kids, we tore open the box and got into it, and to pull out a giant dinosaur head, it's not something you get to do every day. So thank you so much for all this help.
Yeah, you're absolutely welcome. It was a pleasure working with you guys, and we always enjoy doing fun things, you know, that's outside of our everyday, right? It's always a good change.
Exactly. Like all my friends and family were like, "You're building a dinosaur in your garage? What kind of job do you have?" And I always say the best one that I could have ever thought of. But you know what? To see the technology come leaps and bounds, you know, I've been using 3D printers for like over 20 years almost. And what you guys did, I've never seen anything like this one solid print, this massive head. Tell me about the process. What kind of printer is that? And the material. My daughter thought, did Elsa make this? Now she's the girl from Disney, the princess that turns everything into ice, if you don't know. And just totally blew me away. Tell me about the printer and the process a little bit.
Yeah, so we use the Stratasys Neo 800 to build that. That's using stereolithography technology, which basically uses a laser beam to solidify a resin layer by layer, tens of thousands of layers, 50 to 100 microns at a time. So very cool process. We used watershed material, which is a clear material. So that's kind of that frosty look that you were describing from Elsa there. So really fun. It's, stereolithography is the oldest of the 3D printing processes, right? Patented in the early 80s, right? Everybody thinks 3D printing is new, but as you said, you've been dealing with it for 20 plus years, and that's over 30 years now, right?
Wow. So Nick, besides the head, the teeth and gums and this tongue with all the texture on it, you got to tell me about these teeth because they look like real teeth.
Well, that's the goal, right? Stratasys has a line of printers in their PolyJet line that they actually use for creating real dentures for people. So we used that technology to create these, right? So it's a multi-color, multi-material. We're able to add the details in the teeth to give it that realistic look to it.
Perfect. So that would explain when I was grinding on the back end a little bit, it started to smell like a dentist's office inside my garage here.
Exactly. It's stuff that dentists are actually using in-house for humans. And if we ever need a dinosaur that needs some dentures, we can make that happen.
Right. That was awesome. Those are some pretty big dentures. Yep. But yeah, I got to get those, and I painted on top of them and added some even more texture, and I broke off a couple of the teeth so it didn't look so perfect like Gion's original 3D model, and just had a lot of fun with it,
Yeah, that's that PolyJet technology is my favorite because it's the most fun, right? We can add real colors and textures and even some clears or flexible materials when needed.
Absolutely. I tell you what, Nick, what you guys did for us was amazing. It really helped us out. It really pulled this entire dinosaur together. So thank you very much. Now, as far as your services for 3D printing, the general public can reach out and use GoEngineer services for that, correct?
Oh, absolutely. In-house, we offer all 5 of the Stratasys technologies. So FDM, PolyJet, P3, stereolithography, and SAF, as well as some of our other partners, including Formlabs, to have parts produced. Obviously, we're in the business of making sure our customers get the right machine for the right application, right? It's cool that we have all these technologies to offer, and we love working with folks to get the right one. This dinosaur was a great example, right? Each one of these components had a particular need, and being able to pick the right technology for them is really no different than what we're doing with all of our customers on their day-to-day stuff. So not as exciting sometimes as a real life or real full-size dinosaur, but all the same. And we additionally have partnered with BLT as far as metal 3D printing. So that's an offering that we're going to have available very soon on our website, so people can check that out as well.
Cool. What else do you guys have going on at GoEngineer? What do you have coming up?
We're offering a what's new in SolidWorks 2026 session. We're going to pop the QR code up so you guys can scan it and take a look at that and view that recording and see what's new.
Awesome. All right, Nick. Well, thank you so much again for all the work that you and GoE did to pull this together. And I want everyone to know that this dinosaur is going to be at 3D Experience World in Houston. So make sure you swing by and get a picture with it. It's going to be awesome.
All right. Another huge thanks to GoEngineer. That was incredible. That would not have been possible without them. I'm here now joined with Mr. Andy Barnes. Hi, how you doing, Andy? You ready?
I am doing all right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Well, you ready to talk about some of the finish work on the dinosaur that we did?
Yeah.
Because that was the final phase of this whole thing, was finishing the dinosaur, and you helped us out with we've got a new app just for making dinosaur texture. Is that right?
It's true. Yeah.
It is true?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna let you take the reins here. It's a nice pattern.
Yeah. So, I mean, basically, what happens every year is that eventually somebody calls me up and they're like, Andy, we need hexagons on this thing. Right?
that does happen a lot.
Pretty accurate. Yeah. So like, I actually had Jason call me up and he was like, hey man, and he started describing to me that, you guys were building a dinosaur, which seemed pretty logical.
Yeah.
And so I didn't question that. And then he was like, we need dinosaur skin. Right. And he started describing it. And like, I feel like whenever I'm talking to Jason, like I live in like Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Right. Like, and he's like one of the cartoon entities. Right. So when he was describing the dinosaur skin, I imagined like a cartoon dinosaur skin. Right. So that's kind of the direction I headed in.
Okay.
Right?
Fair enough.
So I hopped into X Generative Design, one of the browser-based apps that we have. And I started with, simple stuff, right? I made a rectangle. And then we, slapped a bunch of points on the rectangle. Right. And I was kind of thinking ahead, like Jason might want like a larger scale pattern in some places and smaller in others. So I was like, how do we define that? Right. Because this is actually defined by like number of sample points on a surface. Right. And that's kind of like, how do I judge the size? Like how many points is that? Quick, go. 50,
120.
200. No, it's 200. You're
200?
terrible at this. God.
Yeah,
so what I actually did was, you can actually define like a cell size, right? With if you use the triangulate pattern, right? You can give the average size of a triangle. So
I do see some triangles in there. That's correct.
Right. So rather than number of triangles, right? I just did size, average cell size.
Okay.
Right, which is a number that made sense to me, and then backported that number into the number of points that went on there, right? So now you actually have like a size, an average size for the cells. And then I used my favorite tool, the Voronoi pattern tool, right?
Yeah, I think Jason said you owe him $20 if you say Voronoi again on the stream.
Oh man, I don't know if I can do that. All right. So this pattern here, right, is basically like this cell growth from each one of these points, right? And if you want to know more about how that works, you can go back and watch any of the previous SLUGMEs for the past like 3 years, and I go into great detail discussing it.
Yeah, Andy Barnes strictly talks about Voronoi, and that's pretty much it.
It's so useful. You said it. Now we're both owing $20. So after that, I just put in the cell width, right? Or what I wanted for the wall width in between the cells, extruded that, right? And then, I wanted to lop off the sides of the thing, right? So I made sure that we cut off the sides of it, right? So that's just, add that, lop off the sides, and now it's like ready to go pretty much, right? But I wanted to show Jason like, hey, I also built in some editability here, right? He doesn't need to know exactly how I built all of this. He just needs to have a few of the dimensions that I exposed to him that he could change, right? So in here, you can see you can very quickly and easily just start changing some of these dimensions, right? So now it's 5 inches by 10 inches, right? And then the entire thing rebuilds, right? So makes sense. And then like
still change like the size of the cells themselves.
That's right. So we got cell size approximate is like what I named my variable. Okay. So I can just change that from like it's 0.78 inches right now. I change it to 1.5 inches. Now all the cells get bigger, right? It just automatically rebuilds that. And then if I wanted to, I could also say like, now that the cells are bigger, it would make more sense for the cell wall thickness to be bigger. So I changed the cell wall width. All right. And then there we go.
Yeah, that's pretty close. But I mean, are we like stamping it on this thing?
So this is the thing. So Jason started describing it, right? And I'm going through his filter, right?
Yeah, okay.
So he describes it, right? And then I know I built what he described, right? But I didn't know if you knew this, but the Earth actually isn't flat. Right?
That's interesting. I've been hearing that more and more.
Yeah. And apparently it used to be when the dinosaurs were around, but we're actually building the dinosaur in 3D right now. So it's actually not flat anymore. A lot of people don't know this. The Earth is actually a cylinder.
A cylinder?
Yeah. So I needed to then go back and remodel a cylinder.
Okay. So did you have to like start from scratch? You had to just start over and make a whole new pattern or?
Nope. I pretty much just had to build a cylinder, right? So I made the cylinder, kind of like we had before. Remember, I lopped off the edges. I pre-planned that in, so I got the top and the bottom ready to lop off here. And then I used that same exact stuff I used for the pattern before, but he also said he wanted the pattern to be a little more irregular. So rather than just adding all the points at once, I actually added 3 groups of points and then grouped those groups of points together.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Groups of groups. That makes
Groups of
perfect
groups,
sense.
right?
Yeah.
Because it actually tries to like spread them out evenly. And we wanted this to look more uneven. So I got around that by just adding 3 separate groups. Now you can see they look a lot more uneven than the last pattern looked. Right. So after that, I had the exact same stuff built in there as before. I got the offset curve, right? And then I used that to split the whole thing. If you're familiar with SolidWorks surfacing, it's the same kind of logic here, right? And now I've got all that, and then we just thicken it, right? And I got my inner cylinder here. And then once it's thickened, we are ready to go.
Yep, I'm ready to start rolling on that texture. And yeah, it was it still looks a little bit jagged though.
Yeah. So this is exactly the feedback that I got after this, which was like, we don't actually live in cartoon dino land, right? We live in real dino land, right? So dinosaur skin, I'm getting schooled on this. I actually didn't know all these things about dinosaur skin, but it actually doesn't have sharp edges. Right? It has like pretty soft edges. So the problem with that is we had I want to say like 300 separate holes, right? Cells, and then inside of each one of those, an average of like 6 edges.
Okay.
Right. So now you're talking about like 1,800 edges that need to be filleted. Right.
Yeah, that should be done in like a couple hours.
And if you think about it, they're not all the same fillet size. Right.
Right.
Like some of them are different than
some
others.
of them would be like really tight around a corner.
Yeah. And you start ending up in like with errors like that. And for those of you who have tried to like do like an all edges fillet inside of SolidWorks, like, you know, that is going to absolutely destroy you. You're going to have errors, right? It's just when you have something that's this organic and has that many edges, it can be a problem, right? So what I did instead is I actually have the ability inside of XGen to turn this into a mesh body, right? So I actually took it and turned it into a mesh, and then I was able to actually use this subdivide feature. So it takes this thing that started as parametric geometry, turns it into a mesh, and then now since it's a mesh, I can actually use the subdivide tool on it. And now I've got all of these little tiny subdivisions, right? Which takes all of those sharp edges and softens them.
That's not what I thought, where I thought you were going with this.
Yeah, right? Pretty cool, huh?
Is that a sub D mesh now?
Well, so it is a mesh. It's, yeah.
Can I push it and pull it?
Well, see, the thing is, well, so there's actually a hard-coded limit of 8,000 faces if you want to push it back into a tool like X-Shape.
I see.
It's kind of like, look, man, if like we get over 8,000 faces, like, you don't want to be a part of pushing and pulling that thing, okay?
That's fair.
So it does hard code you at that. Now, I think you guys earlier were mentioning like 1,900 faces.
1,900, yeah. So you could generate like 4 dinosaurs.
Yeah,
out of this,
totally.
Right?
Yeah. So that's actually child's play. Right now, this is 123,000 faces.
I thought you said we're capped at 8. Oh, that's just for the sub.
If you want to push it back into sub D, but I don't need to do that. But 123,000 faces still causes a lot of problems. It's a lot of overweight that you don't really need. So what I did after this is I actually simplified it. So I think first what I did is lop off the top and the bottom, right? So we don't have that edge. So you can kind of have the roller roll next to a piece that you've already rolled, right? You don't have like an artificial line showing up. And then what I did is essentially simplify it. So rather than having 123,000 faces, I came in here and I did decimate. And you can see very quickly it goes from having like 123,000 faces to having far less. Right. But it's essentially still that same kind of curved shape.
Right.
Right. And then after that, all I needed to do was thicken it. And in XGen, you can actually do thicken on a mesh body, right? And where are we taking this thing to? What are we going to do with it? We're going to put it on a cam, like 5-axis machine?
Yeah, right. We're going to make it out of steel.
Right. No, we're going to 3D print it, right? So this is like made for 3D printing already, right? It's like, looks like STL geometry. That's actually what we're going to do with it, is we're going to just turn it into that. And actually, I can take that and turn it into polys, right? And this is actually exactly when you print, like it's a bunch of tessellated surfaces, like a bunch of triangles, and that's exactly what we've done with it. And I basically just took this model, sent it to Jason. Jason printed it up, and then he was able to start rolling with it.
Amazing.
Right?
Yeah, that was a super cool part of the entire process, which actually, first off, thank you, Andy, for showing us this. I don't know if I understand it, but you just did some magic, and I love it. And I would totally watch you do it. I can't wait to see you do a very similar thing next year on SLUGME. A lot more Voronoi use cases.
Sounds good, man.
But we're going to bring Jason back on to show us some of the actual hand texturing that we did and see these rollers live in action that Andy helped us make. So we'll be back in just a moment.
Go Bills.
All right, we're back. Jason made it. We're here to talk texturing. We've got some, Jason, what do we got here? We've got some early iterations of these. This one looks a little shallow.
Yeah.
If you can see that. That pattern did come out absolutely beautiful though.
And it didn't have a hole through it. I told him I wanted like a hole so I could, you know, if I have to get my fingers in there or use a wooden doll or something to apply more pressure. But these were absolutely perfect.
Yep.
It was a way to do the texturing where it didn't have to be all at once. And this isn't a car body or anything like that. So didn't have to be smooth. It wanted to be rough and authentic.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it could be a little gnarly. And I had scales on top of scales.
Yes.
And just rolling this down, you were there the first time we did it.
Yeah, we were still figuring it out how it was going to work.
And
the water was our friend though. I remember it would start sticking after a while.
It sticks to everything. This epoxy sculpt clay is vicious, but it sticks to everything. There's the tendons going on.
So that was a little bit of the hand sculpted details that we talked about.
Sure. And you know what making is all about, like, you know, discovering a path. You know what I mean? And using different tools and processes. And that's what I love about it. It's like continued learning. You know, we're learning as we go. You're like, does this work? Yes, no, maybe. Modify it this way. But we had a lot of luck with putting this on in sheets.
Yep. Like
6-inch to 8-inch sheets, and then adhering it to the foam with force, and then rolling Andy's Dinosaur skin texturizer tube of justice.
Tube of justice.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what we did. It was a lot of rolling. It was slapping on those different pieces, like you said.
Look at going right over top of the veins.
Yep.
And right on the biceps there. It actually did the job.
It did. And we used the epoxy clay on most of it, especially the areas that like we knew everybody was going to see.
Yeah.
But what else did we use on like was it normal spackle that we ended up using for some of it?
Yeah. Chin Lu recommended that we use dry decks.
Dry decks.
It's like this pink spackle, and it goes on pink and then it dries white. Okay.
Right.
And that stuff was great, but it didn't get rock hard. It stayed kind of like drywall. So what we had to do is put Luke recommended the Epsilon Pro on top of it.
Coat.
Yep. And that was like this hard candy shell that was brushed on top of anywhere that we went with the dry decks. And the dry decks, it was temperamental. You had to let it dry almost 90%. So you put it on pretty thick and you'd let it sit like 4 or 5 hours, and then you'd come through with that roller and give it that texture.
That stuff was a workout though to get it.
This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Doing the texture of the dinosaur head. Wasn't sure where to go, so I just jumped in, put a couple sheets on, and then let Andy's texturizer just have at it, man. and then, you know, just putting a bunch of other small pieces on top. I found that doing the texture in layers would get the best result.
So more like irregularity. Like it's not a perfect dinosaur. It's, you know, it's got little, like the texture's not perfect across all of it. It's got little like
flaws
and
imperfections. And every once in a while I would just, you know, give it one of these, you know, and like pop it with a tool here and there. So it had these blisters and life scars, you know, this thing, you know,
it's been through battle.
It's an expert swimmer, expert digger, likes to dig, you know what I mean? It's like athletic. So it's got scars and battle wounds. You know?
Sounds like Frank does everything except flying. Maybe.
Yeah, he can fly.
He can fly too?
Yeah.
All right, maybe we'll see
in
that.
An airplane.
Yeah. So we lopping on these different like pieces, and then talk about like how did we get the spikes in there? Like what was the plan around that, and how did you get the texture around them?
The spikes were interesting because each one had to be drilled, and toothpick or bamboo needed to be, you know, the bamboo shoots there. What would we call those? Bamboo skewers. Yeah.
Here's a nice look at one in the camera.
Yeah,
like we've got these different claw pieces that you just drill the hole and then just stuck in the skewer, and then you could just punch them in. It was perfect for lining up the location.
The process was 3D print them, drill them, glue in a toothpick or a bamboo skewer, put it into the XPS foam, trace out the XPS foam, remove with an X-Acto knife and scoop out that foam so that this 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch like sat into a pocket.
Right.
And then that pocket was consumed with the Gorilla Glue, and that thing is in there. Those spikes are officially in Frank and not coming out. But I wanted each one to be pocketed and recessed down, and then allow for the epoxy sculpt to come on top of that. And if you look close in person, you'll see the little scales that are built up all the way around those horns or those spikes.
I saw that. You got to come to World and actually see this thing in person. Like it looks amazing on the video now,
it's true.
It really doesn't do it justice. Just how big it is and how detailed it is. Like the thing looks crazy real.
And I want people to walk up and touch it, experience it, walk all the way around it, and witness all the detail that was put into it.
Don't try to ride it though. Those spikes are sharp and they are.
I promised my son Max like he could ride it at one point, and I'm like, yeah, buddy, it's got a steel armature. You can ride it. You'll be on top of a dinosaur. And then one day he came home from school and it kind of slipped my mind, and I had already started just burying these spikes, and I'm like just sticking these things in, and I'm going to town. And he goes, Dad, how am I gonna ride this dinosaur now? I was like, yeah, about that. We're gonna skip that part. We're gonna skip it. You know,
it's all right. Hey, it looks amazing. The spikes were in there. The next phase is where we started painting, and when I say we, I really mean you started painting this thing pretty much all on your own, right?
Oh yeah. So here it is. I think I'm priming this, rolling out of the garage.
It looks crazy.
Yeah. To roll it out of the garage, I needed 2 full sheets of plywood, one to roll it on, and then to move the other one to roll it on, and so I could move it around.
It looks scary, even just like with the white.
This was like 8 cans or maybe more of the primer. And then here's the color scheme. You know, this is the closest I could get. This is automotive grade paint.
What made you choose automotive paint for this project?
Just, I like the way it comes out of my gun. I have an automotive gun.
Oh yeah,
for spraying. Yep. There it is right there. I just like how it just flows out really nice. Like once you get into latex and other types of acrylics, it gets a little chunky and you get globs, and then you'll get spitting, and spitting's no good. I wanted a nice smooth paint flow. So I'm in it for the flow. Okay?
I see. Yeah, it looks like you got a nice.
So started with white and then shot the tan underneath the belly and chin. I like the idea of this thing being like a sand creature, you know, and sliding, you know, on the sand.
It's a versatile creature. It's good for any environment.
Then I hit it with the teal that me and you picked.
Yeah, that was a cool. I'm very happy with the teal color that we ended up with, and I really love that like you let the tan continue more into like the face and the mouth, and just have kind of accents of the blue.
Yep.
Like Yeah, I'm very happy
So
with it.
I consulted with you and Luke, like in process, you know, on the paint, because I wanted it to look authentic. I really like the idea of black creeping in from its arms and legs. It makes it a little angrier, doesn't it? Like right away. So here's some darker values going in. This was all done in 1 day, I think.
That was 1 day.
Pretty sure.
And then this is where you start doing more of the
detailing.
details, like
Right.
teeth and gums. And is this the same spray booth and everything, or same sprayer that you
This
used?
is is acrylic based airbrush. I like it because it's you know, low impact. I can just spray it. It doesn't fume out the whole house or anything. So yeah, this is like the tongue. I'm like, okay, it was bright red. I hit it with a primer white, and I just started having fun with this like dark gray. Just put like these stripes on it. Then I reintroduced pink back on top of that. So I'm painting in layers, you know. You paint a lot. You start with the background first, and you just keep working your way on top. And then this was like the eye shadow, you know, and the nostril shadow. I'm just bringing in dark values on top of what was already there. And it adds a layer of realism. And then getting into the teeth, this was a lot of fun. I spent probably way too much time, but that sponge right there was my best friend. I would apply paint and then remove it with the sponge, and it would give me like a cellular like level of detail, you know?
It looked, I mean, it came out looking so realistic.
There she is. There's Izzy.
Izzy was there the whole time.
Yeah. And you know, I had some plaque I had to add to this, you know, gingivitis, you know, make this authentic. I mean, the one thing we know about dinosaurs is that they did not have toothbrushes.
No, they did not.
There you go.
I like that you had
drill.
The clear coat on the teeth and the mouth too. So
This is really cool.
wet.
This is like a translucent brown. And I started going in on top of all that scaling and texture and just darkening it up in areas. And it really brought it home. And then hand painting these little scales.
Little like blotches. Almost.
Yeah, we had like these spots or these bleed outs because the camouflage isn't perfect, you know. Just really trying to mimic, you know, what I saw in fish. You know, if you look at the fish from our art board there on the lean board, it was like they have like this speckle kind of camouflage, just really trying to mimic, you know, what I see in nature, you know.
So you got some claws in there too, some nice black claws, and then added more color and texture to those. Like so much went into.
Oh gosh.
This had to be the majority of the time you spent on this, right?
Yeah, in the
texturing and
the
painting.
3D printer, man, we kept that thing running in my garage, just like lights out, like, oh, another set of claws, here we go. And I could not resist gluing in the claws. I know the llamas, they did ask me at one point to not glue the claws in because of the base and stuff, but I couldn't look at Frank and not see his fingernails and toenails.
Yeah.
So that was more for me to see like the progression, you know. As a maker, you want to feel accomplished at the end of the day.
100%.
And so
you want to see the full picture of how it's all going to come together.
And that was the tiger stripes I was obsessed with the whole time. Just wanted to bring in some more camouflage, you know, inspired by a tiger, you know, obviously.
100%.
But yeah, and then the nails, all the nails and the teeth and the gums, I hit with a high gloss clear coat.
Right.
So if you look at Frank, you know, in Houston and right now, it has the high gloss values where they need to be. Like if you look at fingernails or toenails, they have a bit of a sheen to them. So I did that. And then this was Luke. Luke reminded me, you know what, Jay, you're a little too showroom ready on the paint job. So that inspired me to reach for the 120 grit sandpaper. And I just literally started attacking this thing and dug those horns through some gravel. At times I beat him up. I wanted it battle ready. I didn't want, you know, Frank to look weak. You know, I wanted him, he's aged, you know, so this is me aging him a little bit.
And then what's this going on here? Is this more clear coat?
Yeah, this is a flat hot rod clear coat. It's an automotive clear coat. It's just protecting the paint from, you know, sun, where, you know, any sort of UV damage that could happen, and just kind of putting a seal on top of everything else. So not 100% needed, but
no, but it's
why
good
not
to have. And
why not go for it? Yeah, and then gluing the horns in, the spikes in. And you know what was great is when my kids would get off the school bus and
they'd come running up the driveway.
Yeah.
Like, what'd you do, Dad? What'd you get done today? You know, on the Dinosaur. It's like, you know, building a dinosaur in your garage is like an experience. It really is.
Especially if you've got kids ready to try to ride it.
They're like, oh, you painted the teeth, you know? So it was like each milestone was really, I really cherished each one and saw their expression. And that's what being a maker is. It's about learning something new and surrounding yourself with amazing people and the latest technology and just developing something that, you know, and why did we pick a dinosaur? You know, because I didn't even think it was possible. You know, I wanted to challenge this team and see what we could build. And, you know, I've never built a dinosaur.
Me neither. I've never built a dinosaur or anything this big. And I love dinosaurs. I've always wanted to do some type of large scale, like almost like an art installation piece. And I don't know if you call this an art installation or just scary.
It is museum quality. When we first set out, I did not feel like we needed to achieve museum quality. But after seeing Luke's eyeballs and once the texturing, we got that started, and I was like, okay, we got momentum as a team and we're like gaining. And then seeing the craftsmanship that went into the base, it's amazing. So it is museum quality and it's something to really be proud of.
It is huge team effort. And you mentioned the eyes. I think that's the next thing and the last like final touch that we wanted to bring Kirby back on here to talk about some of the eyeballs and some of the work that Luke did. So we'll be back here in a moment.
I'm back.
Kirby, you're back. You're back with some eyeballs
yes,
too.
I'm filling some very big shoes because Luke couldn't be with us today. He's doing something awesome.
He is. He did an amazing job on this. We wish he could be here, but we understand. And you know, you're very familiar with the process that he took. So
100%. Yeah.
These were not going to be the final eyes. I know you guys probably saw it online and were like, "That's it, the eyes."
Yeah,
no,
that's what we started. That's the eyeball final one. That
it's amazing.
Luke created using a variety of different techniques, different printing technologies, and resin casting. And it's super amazing.
Yeah, and I think we, as always, you know, we started in CAD, so we've got his model in SolidWorks to make this as like a. It's got like a two-part cavity, and then he's also got, what would you call this part on the bottom, like the
it's just like a stand. It makes it easier to work on. So what Luke did here is he 3D printed those parts. The top half of the eyeball was done in resin because he needed to get the details of the iris.
Right.
So that was printed in resin. Everything was FDM. He spent a lot of time working on it, painting it, and finishing it. And then that clear ball that's around the eyeball, that's the resin. So that represents the resin that is encapsulating the actual eyeball inside.
And we went so that's a pretty thick layer. We had some texture built in there from in the 3D model. And then this is where he started with getting it ready for printing.
Yeah,
right?
Printed in resin on a Form 2 printer, similar to the ones here behind us.
Right. Yep. There's Luke.
Missed that man. And the rest of it, FDM on a Bamboo Labs, which again, printers that we have here in the lab, so very accessible machines. He spent a lot of time actually detailing it and getting it all ready. He actually molded the resin print first because it's much quicker to cast a new one than print a new one. So if you spend a lot of time with one eyeball and cast it, it makes it so much easier to replicate it.
So that's the casted one you're saying. So then he used, what was it, silicone?
So here's using silicone to create that the mold of the front of the eye, the iris. Obviously, the dino's got two eyes.
Right.
Needs to make a second one, and this is the quickest way to do that.
And then this was, what did he use to make like the white part we see in here, the final iris? Is that like some kind of plaster or some type of?
It's a two-part resin, polyurethane, if I'm not mistaken. I know the actual clear part is polyurethane.
Polyurethane.
Yeah, and then he starts prepping his the mold that he built to cast the resin all around it. So you can see how that little, let's call it a doorknob, is kind of made so that it's easier to work on. So he doesn't actually have to touch the eye while it's being painted.
I see that. So that's the center before we start adding paint,
Yeah.
and then
He handed it over to Paul, one of his very, very talented painters and creators at Orbital Effects. He spent a lot of time actually painting it and adding in all the details. They then poured some black resin into the pupil. It gets a much deeper black and makes it look more, darker. Also creates that slight little curve because it's a fluid.
And then hand painting on like the veins and the like striations and the eye detail it just looks absolutely insane.
Yeah. And then, once that was done, they did about 3 layers of resin. So the reason why you want to paint the resin on first is it's the brush allows you to get into all of the grooves and into all of the details. And it allows you to make sure that you're not trapping any air in it.
And were they, so they would do a layer of resin, and then would they still paint more and then do more resin? Okay.
It creates even more depth. So you've got paint at different depths of the actual eyeball.
I see the blowtorch for the...
Yeah, that just helps get rid of bubbles that float on the surface. They look incredible.
Yeah, those look amazing. And then slowly layering it on.
Layer by layer, they were just adding more and more.
And I think we got a cool shot of like the finished size one versus like where closer to where it started. Like we had some thickness on that.
Yeah, so there's the 2 eyeballs there, and then some danger hands here. I think both Jason and Luke had some troubles polishing these round spheres.
Yeah, it's not an easy shape to work with.
No. It's quite entertaining.
But these finished eyes, they just came absolutely incredibly. Like, I still can't believe it. I mean, it looks so good. A little bit of bubble action.
Yeah, but that can be removed by doing vacuum, by putting the resin in a vacuum. That helps remove it. So that's an interesting process that helps mitigate the bubbles that you can get.
Yeah, we're gonna have to try that out next time. But like these, I kind of like it. It kind of ages the dinosaur a little. Like, it's not perfect. Maybe this dinosaur, Jason said, it's been aged. Maybe it's got a little cataracts going on in that pupil or something.
But overall, like as soon as we put this eyeball into the Frank's face, it came alive. Like these were cool.
Yeah,
but
let's show it. So like we were able to fit it, getting like the motion in here. I mean, I don't know if we're gonna get these eyeballs to move. We'll see. Maybe by world we'll figure out how to get that to happen. But the 3D printed version is okay. But then
so when I arrived, we ran into a problem.
A little bit of a size disparity there.
So I don't know if this was a conversion between metric and imperial. I don't know what happened.
Probably,
they're different sizes.
They are. But you pivoted on the fly, and I love the solution.
So essentially, I just took the diameter of this and the diameter of that in SolidWorks, merged them together, and made a kind of holder, a casing for it.
Yeah.
Which allows us to, don't want to lose that, allows us to actually put the kind of the holder inside the eye like that.
Right.
And it changes the diameter of the socket.
It almost looks like an eyelid too, like when it moves.
Yes, 100%. I'll try to do this with one hand.
Here, I'll hold the base for you.
There we go.
So,
and as you can see there, we've got an eye that looks so much more alive.
Yeah, we have to get the eyes moving for world.
So
I really wanted to freak people out when they take a picture and they just see the eye move.
I know. I mean, you can put some sensors in the nose that watches people and it tracks as people are walking around. It's incredible.
Hey, if you're trying to do that, we'd be happy to have you do that, Kirby. That would be amazing.
There are plenty of talented people that's able to do that kind of thing. But yeah, we use 3D printing to solve a problem. It was about 10 minutes of CAD work, an hour of printing, and that problem was solved using SolidWorks and 3D printing.
Yeah, super fast. And I didn't even know that there was a problem by the time I got to the lab. It was already solved.
Yes.
Like,
we're engineers. We like to solve problems.
Yes.
So we see that challenge, we tackle it.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on and telling us about the process, Kirby. And of course, huge thank you to both you and Luke. And his name was Dan, who painted the Paul and Luke. Amazing job. Incredible. I cannot wait for you guys to see this in person down in Houston, hopefully. Yeah. And I think that we're going to bring Jason back on for the final reveal in a moment. And sorry, not the final reveal just yet, but we've got mapping the dyno through the rest of the entire, actually, before that, we actually had to,
Robert.
Yeah, we had to get this thing in a truck. We had to get this in the nice Penske, in the big Penske truck, getting it ready. This was Dan and Jason getting it loaded up on the on our rental truck and taking off down the street, driving it all the way to Waltham from New York, and it made it. Frank made it.
I hope that video is not sped up.
That's not sped up.
And he made it safely.
I mean,
Wow.
Jason was driving that one. Dan's got some real courage letting Jason drive that whole way. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again, Kirby.
Not a problem.
Let's see actually mapping that dinosaur through the entrance to the building, which is a bit of a challenge. He made it. He made it through the door. So mission accomplished, right? Little finagling all the way through. And I love, big shout out to Sal for making a sweet animation of that and mapping it to make sure we actually could get it through the door.
Right. It was a team effort. We had those doors had to pivot when Frank would articulate in. So someone had to manage the door from slamming against Frank's body, causing damage. So, and there was 4 doors at once.
So this was a multi-person operation.
Yeah, we had 4 people holding doors, and just the finesse, and it was good. Sal was calling all the shots, rotate 5 degrees. It was intense. And you know what? We needed something to worry about, as humans. And I think we all were worried about those double doors,
We kind of, it wasn't an afterthought, but like we thought they were a little bit bigger. Thought it'd be able to fit through. Hey, we made it work. So
it worked.
But that just about wraps up kind of the 3 main portions of this build. We saw designing the dinosaur with sub-D modeling, with iterating and collaborating between Jason and I and the rest of the team, working with both X Design and SolidWorks, and then moving on to constructing the dinosaur, welding the structure, using the jigs and the fixtures, a lot of multi-body modeling and master modeling, and then physical construction, and then finally a bunch of finish work, adding texture, adding paint, adding the eyeballs from Luke, which were incredible. Yep. And now I think it's finally time for our official reveal, if we're ready. Yeah, went from the 3D model here, amazing, to the real life final version of the dinosaur. Over to Sal to take a look at how Frank turned out.
Awesome.
Great, thank you guys. I want to show you, Frank is looking awesome. You can see those beautiful, one of the beautiful eyes up here in the face. You can see me standing next to it. I'm that 5'8" guy. All right, I'm only 5'7". But when Frank showed up at the lab, he was still floating in the air. He had that wonderful wooden base, the steel underneath. And so for the last week or so, we had to go and build the landscape underneath him. And it was a great time to have some creative fun. Jason got to do a lot of freehand sculpting, and the folks here in the lab had a chance to do that as well. We have the precisely machined wooden base and the wonderfully precise 3D printed feet, and we got to sort of sculpt the landscape underneath it. And we had a lot of fun with it, building some vegetation that Chinlu will talk about in a little bit. We even built a little nest here that Chinlu will also speak to, and had fun with texture and fossils. But you'll hear more about that from Kirby in a bit. I want to take you over to this work in progress island. and talk a little bit about how it was built. So we can build lightweight rocks like that are really strong. But even once you get to an island about this big, you do need a little bit of a structure. So what we did underneath, we just CNC'd sort of this 4-inch racetrack around the perimeter, and then used all the scraps we could to sort of structurally make it a little bit more rigid. And then we started to fill it with both foam and paper to build out the volume. Most of the foam that we use here is this 3-inch thick expanded polystyrene. It's the kind of stuff you get at the home center to insulate your house with. You know, this top surface, we machined in a footprint. Let us know in the chat if you can guess the actual dinosaur's footprint that we use. I'll tell you a little bit later. But I modeled that in X shape, just like Jason and Gian did with the entire dinosaur. And then I just subtracted that from another piece of geometry to create that. And then we use a series of products to actually make this look a little more realistic. So we coat the foam with this chicken wire. It's very flexible. It lets us sculpt some other interesting details. And then we wrap that with burlap. So you can sort of see the remnants of the burlap edges here. You know, they still telegraph through, but we've got techniques to hide that in a bit. Anywhere where we felt like the structure wasn't strong enough, we actually drilled holes and just used the good old-fashioned spray foam to fill in there. And then, of course, now these are nice and strong. So it's a really fun sort of DIY approach to building out landscapes. Now, in SLUGME 8, you may have remembered the word of the year was jesmonite, which is a great product for building hard-coated structures like this. We use it to build the tree trunk for that build. Jesmonite is a powder-based material that you mix with epoxy, and it creates this really hard surface. This year, however, in the spirit of like learning something new, I wanted to try monster mud. And it's sort of a DIY-friendly approach to building these hard-coated surfaces. This is just regular old household paint, latex paint. And then this is your drywall mud, your joint compound. And with a 5-to-1 ratio, 1 part paint, 5 parts joint compound. Get in here. Mixed it all together, whatever color you choose. You can then brush that on, and then when it dries, it does create this nice hard surface. As I said, though, you can either add multiple layers of that to build this up and start to try and hide some of the seams. But we have Kirby here to start to talk about some other interesting ways to hide the stuff we don't want to see. So I'll turn it over to Kirby. He can talk to us a little bit about what he did.
Yeah, so like on the main base and a couple of patches here, we've used sand, just regular sand that you can get from your Home Depot, any DIY store, or the beach if you live near one. And it's a very simple technique. We use basically just a wood glue or a PVA glue, and we'll just basically dollop a little bit on there. And then we'll take a paintbrush and actually paint, just doing a little patch for this display. Once you've covered the surface with your PVA glue, just take the sand, put it over there, and whatever stays behind covers it. And that helps us fill in the cracks, helps fill in the little burlap sack seams and everything like that. So yeah, whatever stays on kind of creates that texture. And it's a great way to make a gravelly ground texture very, very quickly and easily. You can water down the PVA glue to get a larger spread as well. What we also wanted to do here, instead of just having sand, we wanted to add, you know, a kind of like lava kind of obsidian type rock and some fossils, you know, kind of represent that this guy here might be a bit old. I've got some bits somewhere. There it is. So I took a bit of clay over here and 3D printed these little helixes, pushed it in there, baked it, and then painted them on to these to make little rocks with some fossils in, and a bit of paint magic. You can create some extra little tiny details. So it's not just a sandy area. And then over here is a lovely nest, which hopefully soon we're going to be filling up with some eggs. The rock there that's in the middle, that's actually from a previous project that we've done here at SLUGME. When we were making the tree, and for 3D Experience World, we had the rocks in a obstacle course. So this project allowed us to recycle some old projects and some older things so it can be used again. But the trees that are over there, that was done by the amazing Chinlu, so I'm going to hand it over to her and she'll tell you how we made our own custom trees.
Thank you, Kirby. So we had Frank, and Frank, in my heart, is short for Francine. She was brought in here, and as far as I know, it was just this bar that Jason has set for everything else that's going to complement Frank. And in my mind, we needed to create this really nice jungle, like watery, dark, muddy area that Frank's going to live in. So we wanted to try out different ways of making vegetation and flora. One of the things we did was explore the qualities of a pool noodle. And I have proof here. This is a pool noodle we purchased. One of the things you could do with pool noodles are you can actually do a lot of sculpting with it since it's fully squishable. And also heat guns are amazing on this. So what we did was we actually scored each part of the trunk once we had it to the right size. And with a heat gun, we were able to expose those cracks to create these amazing patterns. And once that's created and also shaped again with a heat gun, we're able to add dry brushing, airbrushing to reveal this layer of sophistication that from a distance, it looks like a prehistoric pine cone trunk / fern body. This is meant to be a fern tree. The next thing we did to bring this to life was to give it foliage. And we went and just scoured YouTube to figure out how to do cool things with leaves. And one of the neat design we found was this paper-based flower. And all it is a really nice stock paper that's been cut to shape, and a piece of wire is embedded in there. After gluing with tacky glue, we shaped it and cut all of the little firm pieces. And the coolest part about these leaves are the really fringy effect you can get by pressing the leaves with something hard. In fact, this is just a generic stainless steel chopstick. And on a piece of foam, if you press hard enough, you can actually just kind of crush the paper and create this really cool fern-like effect. And now, after it's properly set up in the tree, we can go and use some dry brushing, add depth. It's still work in progress. We also added some fiddle heads using similar plant design skills and wires and tape to give it this nice realistic look. We're hoping to dot this terrain with more of these, including corpse flowers and giant monstera leaves. So there'll be a lot of foliage added, including an island that's going to be there. As we mentioned before, I think Kirby mentioned, we are going to try to add some eggs in here. So if any of you guys have some good ideas on what the egg should look like, we did cut out a stand-up. I am catting this, so I have a guess as to what it looks like, and it actually looks decent in that space. But we just wanted to get some ideas as to how to sculpt it and 3D print it. I think we might be 3D printing this, or maybe even just making molds. But on top of the eggs, we would love to add another island that adds more vegetation, a water feature that Rachel's going to dive into, and just bring this whole environment to life. Hello. So this over here right now is just a hole in the ground, but this will become our water feature. So like Chinlu said, our friend Frank lives in this wet jungle type environment. So what better way to showcase that than to have a puddle? This isn't necessarily Frank's footprint. This is someone else's footprint. But we wanted to have this imprint in the mud. And what we're going to do, once all of this sand is applied, we're going to add some resin. So here I have a 2-part epoxy resin and some resin dyes. And we were experimenting with different colors of the water because this is mud, right? It's not necessarily the cleanest thing. So we mixed some green and brown dyes, and we were experimenting with different shades of what the water could look like. We have something really murky, we have something more clear but pretty dark, and then we arrived at this one. And I want to point out a couple details on this one as well. These are my sample puddles. There is a technique we really wanted to learn, and that is manipulating the uncured resin.
So this particular resin we're using has a relatively long working time. It's about an hour. And then it takes 24 hours to solidify and then another 2 to 3 days to fully cure. So that gives us a lot of wiggle room to wait for this to get into the perfect waxy state, where we then take a pair of gloves, because remember, uncured resin, and then we use this acrylic pour oil, just dip your finger at it, and you press in all of the ripples. And this was important to us because our friend Frank over here is not standing still. He's maybe stomping around. And there's going to be some vibrations coming through the ground. We wanted to showcase that here in our water feature. And if that's not enough building for you, we have more where that came from. But we want your help. So let's hear more about our community build.
Hey everybody, welcome to the 30th anniversary of Arcad Community. I'm Todd Blacksher.
I'm Eric Beatty.
And I'm John Matrician.
We've been using SolidWorks for a while. Eric, how long have you been using it?
Oh golly, 30 years now.
John?
So, since 1996, so if you do the math out, that's 29 to 30 years.
And some change. I'm the newbie. I started in 2002, so 23 years maybe. What to you is the best part about SolidWorks?
Most folks would look at me and they'd probably think Eric loves multi-body modeling.
That's my thought.
But truth be told, it's the SolidWorks community of users.
You mean it's not power trim? I mean,
That's
power trim is up there.
That's what I expect you to say, John.
Yeah, but I would have to say it's the SolidWorks community that's really just pushed me over the edge with it.
And I know Todd is going to say sheet metal.
Yep. I was going to say sheet metal because I love working with sheet metal, but really at the end of the day, the best part of all of this is the community. And, you know, the community gathers at the conference every year. It used to be SolidWorks World, now it's 3D Experience World.
That's how we all met.
Yeah. Three kids from scattered across the country.
Exactly. I'm Seattle, John's Massachusetts.
And I'm Nebraska, smack in the middle of the flyover states.
So we cover the continent, coast to coast.
But even with all that distance, we still chat on a nearly daily basis.
If not, multiple times a day.
Multiple times,
Well,
yes.
yeah.
Either it's through texting or through conversations on 3D Swim. It's daily feed that I need my therapy every day.
And we don't get together very often. I mean, it's World or sometimes a big event. This time it happens to be SLUGME.
Yeah.
And, you know, SLUGME is a great community event because we get to work together on stuff.
And we get to build stuff.
Exactly. But it's a smaller group.
Yeah. As you've seen, there's maybe
a dozen
or so people involved, and you know, the more the merrier. So what we've wanted to do is develop an even larger community build project and involve SolidWorks user group leaders, SolidWorks champions, SolidWorks everyday users like you,
makers,
our friends,
makers, students. You know, we want to bring them all in.
Don't know we're friends yet.
Yeah,
and
but we will be.
And we may be from different areas of the United States, but we have friends all around the world. So we want to reach out to everyone that's watching.
We want people to know like what we know. You know, we can, hey, we've got a guy in Australia, we've got a guy in India, we know people everywhere, and we're able to reach out to them because of this community, and we want to make you a part of that.
And the way this community interacts, everything just fits together so nicely, you know, in all sorts of different forms. I mean,
different shapes, even.
It's like a puzzle.
Almost.
Yeah.
Like Tetris.
Yeah.
Just like a shape that fits so nicely together that it joins.
And we had this idea that what if we were to do something like this, but on the other side of it, there's little pockets. This is the actual size of the piece. This was 3D printed. And what we're thinking, people sign up, you get a piece, and you get to fill it with whatever represents you or your user group or your community or your school,
your industry,
company, your industry. Personally, I'm going to be very disappointed if the Alltech guys don't do a boom truck in one. There better be an iron swug one.
I know I'm planning to do the Seattle skyline with the Space Needle in mind.
You know, the possibilities are whatever you want to do. We are going to create a standard frame file that you'll download, just a Parasolid, and then you fill it with whatever represents you and what makes you a part of the community.
And how many different shapes are there, Todd?
There's 7 standard shapes in Tetris. Everybody gets to make a shape, fill it with something that represents them. There'll be a Smartsheet link in the chat, and you can go in and sign up. If you can't print it yourself, maybe you can go to a makerspace or possibly send it to one of the labs.
Hope to see you at 3D Experience World 2026.
Hey, what's up, Slugginators? Welcome back. I have an accomplice here. I have Mr. Andy Barnes, the creator of the skin texturizer rolling unit.
Nice.
That gave Frank his life. You brought realism.
Yeah.
To Frank.
Okay. So is that where we're gonna texturize this guy right now?
Yeah. Gonna do a quick little dirty demo.
I've been looking at this book. So we're adding feathers to it because it seems like most dinosaurs have
Turn
feathers.
the page back, okay?
Oh,
you don't got time for your shenanigans.
I mean, this one has feathers too.
We're shenanigan less today, okay? Take it very serious. Go ahead and put these gloves on.
Okay.
All right.
This was actually my Halloween costume.
Jeez. Okay. Thought I saw something, but I guess maybe I did.
Okay.
Andy, gloves. Don't look over your shoulders, Todd. Get him, Todd. Okay. Everything's normal. So we got the gloves on. I don't know if we need the book.
No.
Put the book over there. We know what a
Alright, good.
dinosaur looks like.
This is
epoxy sculpt clay.
Ooh.
Just a beautiful thing. You got part A, you got part B, you mix them together and you work like hell. And in 20 minutes, donezo.
All right.
Done, like
Sounds
stone,
good.
like over.
Love it.
Now we have rubber gloves on because we don't want to ruin our fingertips.
Beautiful.
Okay, gonna need those. And
Need.
water.
Get it? Need.
We're gonna need it. We're
Right.
gonna need it
Yeah.
real good. There's nothing to see there. Water is our friend.
All right.
Okay.
Good. Good.
So water's gonna not allow the epoxy sculpt to bind up. So
Okay.
go ahead. You get that piece out, and you get that piece out. Okay. I like this one.
harder?
Yeah, this one's easier.
Wait, do I have to get the whole thing out? What are we doing here? Oh,
Yeah,
just
go
like a
ahead.
piece of it?
Yeah, here, I'm
Like a
gonna-
golf ball size piece.
A little smock action on here. Oh, we're gonna
I
need
like
some
how
of
you
these
did
tools.
this.
We're gonna need some
Makes
of
me
these.
look extremely weak.
We're gonna need these tools. Yeah, so a little bigger than a golf ball.
It's a little sticky.
It's not great. So
Oh my
you
God.
could weigh this out if you were that type of person and get the proper weight. So you have part A, part B,
Yeah.
then mix them together.
You're not that type of person, right?
It's not really my thing.
So have you ever like let a Tootsie Roll sit out on the counter for like 2 weeks and then tried to like form it? That's what this is.
Okay, so check it out. We got water down here on the table. Okay,
Yep. I'm with you.
get it nice and damp. Now we're gonna take this. We get the right size.
I think so,
I think
right?
you need a little. You need
More?
a little more. Yeah.
More? Okay. There we go.
So
All right,
see, the
perfect.
one is kind of like a neutral, like tan.
Yeah.
The other one's like pretty, pretty solid white, right?
This one's kind of sticky too.
Oh yeah. You
sticky?
need water on your hands.
Okay.
This is the water tray. Just kind of dippy do.
Dip.
Okay.
Dips for
Then
days.
Take these.
Yep.
Roll them both out here. You
Love
do
it.
I've done
Okay,
this.
I'll
I know
roll
what
them
this
both
like.
out.
Roll them both out.
Yep.
Okay. Stop. The same size.
mean,
Try
they're
to make them
close.
the same size. Okay. Now, what I like to do, it's like making like French bread or something.
Yep.
Twist that all up. Twist it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
There you go.
I actually watch a lot of Great British Baking. So,
Okay. Do they do this?
Yeah.
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 It's
Paul Hollywood.
sculpting's a
He's
lot
all
like
about this.
baking. You know,
Yeah.
put a little butter on that.
Love it.
Keep twisting it.
A little olive oil.
Keep twisting it. All right,
We
now
need
knead
rosemary.
that sucker together like it's like it.
Put it together.
Smash it, punch it, push it around, like with some urgency. You know what I'm saying? Just don't let it hit the floor. There you go. Oh man,
Is this the first time you've actually watched somebody else do
yeah,
it?
it's kind of rewarding.
It's better.
Well, when I had Gian in the garage, he was just an animal. He was just like
I
pawing
bet,
it
dude.
together, like
He was like, gotta get my workout in for the day.
And then but you kind of like we took turns, you know, like he'd do that, and then I'd roll, he'd do it, and I'd roll back and forth. But yeah,
okay.
I think you're doing it. I think you're doing a good job.
I mean, isn't it a 3-part epoxy if you also need water? I feel like
the water just keeps it from sticking to you and the thing. So just put your hand in that, slap it around. All right, now let's see what you got here. All right,
it's starting
looking pretty good, man.
mixed,
I would
right?
say it's mixed. I would say stop.
Stop.
Yeah. So we're gonna stop.
I'm gonna listen to you.
We're just gonna flatten this out like a pizza.
Love it.
Forget
Love
about it.
Hey.
Oh.
Hey, I'm a computer. Stop all the downloading.
Yeah. So there we go. Nice and wet. And then roll that out nice and thin.
Dude,
Just roll it out.
I actually, no joke,
We're making some pizza.
I made an apple pie the other day.
Did you really?
Yeah, I made my own crust too. Just reminds me of it.
You don't have to share everything, Andy. You know?
I have other stories too. This is my life. By the way, I'm watching Great British Bake Off. I'm making apple pies.
It's good. So gotta tighten up my apron.
Oh God.
Control. Okay.
Now what?
How are we doing?
How flat do I need to make this thing?
That's great.
Good.
You've done
All right,
quite
I'll
enough
do
of that.
more. I'm doing a little too much.
Yeah.
Does it look like South America, kind of?
It does. Shape
There's
it out.
Brazil. Okay.
You see that? I see Porterhouse. But go ahead.
Well, I'm staring at that flat Earth all day.
Yeah, that's good. I do see South America now.
Yeah, right.
All right, so here's the element that we're applying texture to. Okay, we're just gonna go like right in here.
Yep.
Just put a little hit of this on. Okay.
Love it. Love it.
So like that would work. You know, we're gonna save like this much.
Whoa, he's using tools.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
I'm gonna save that. Okay.
Love it. Yeah, we'll keep that for later.
And then wish I had a knife. All these tools here. I'm gonna do this. Just put a little cut here.
Holy cow.
Okay. And then just like that.
This is crazy.
Yeah.
You're crazy, dude.
Just doing it. All right.
Wow.
Now, what you're gonna do is just work like push it down and in, but keep your fingers wet. Okay. There you go. Just like find the edges, work them down. Sometimes I use this little round ball here.
I love it.
And I just push it down. And that's just going to adhere to the SLA print from GoE. Okay.
Sick.
So
stereolithography.
Yeah, sure. Okay. What do we say? The actual ones we ran on Frank, we printed at my house out of PLA.
Yeah.
And then we just did all the texture like this by hand, just because we were impatient, you know?
Yeah.
We wanted to move.
Yep.
So, all right, that looks pretty good.
Nice.
Now,
Like it.
payoff pitch.
Ooh.
This is what you did
The
all that
roller,
extra
yeah.
work for.
Hey.
This is the Andy Barnes. Get your hands wet.
My hands are wet.
Get this wet.
Get everything wet.
A spray bottle's nice, but it's not totally needed. I felt like it just kind of jammed up and got in the way.
All right, so now we're doing
Hold
this.
on, timeout. TV timeout
I'm
here.
doing it.
I know you're gonna. I'm gonna get slather that gat it up. Nice and wet. There you go. Put the cap on this. All right. There you go. Now, pick a spot and just send it. Nice and slow. This is slow and steady, okay?
It's ruining it.
Sticky. Yep.
They didn't get enough water on it. He got a scar there. This was a battle damage
right here.
Probably from from an ankylosaurus.
Not too hard.
Was
Not
it
too hard?
Do you think it was from an
Oh
ankylosaurus?
yeah. Oh yeah, that's looking good. It's looking good. Yeah, buddy.
Hey, look at that.
Oh,
That
forget
looks like
about it.
That looks like texture.
Here, try rolling one right
Right
there.
here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She'll get in there. Get in
I
there.
see.
Emily.
Yeah, if
Get
I'm
in
going
there.
too hard, it's actually.
But you
like
want to
cutting
go.
it.
You want to go deep. Like watch. Like you still want to.
Oh, see, you went too deep.
Yeah, you still want to get in there. See how they like come out as like little extrusions.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
It's pretty nifty.
Pretty cool.
I like it.
Finish it.
All right.
Finish it. Finish.
I like thinking about like him just like attacking other dinosaurs. So like every time I
No,
cut
actually,
through,
he's
it's
very
like,
friendly dinosaur.
He is?
Yeah.
Okay. So he's getting attacked by other dinosaurs, but he's like a pacifist.
Yeah.
I get it.
He
Yeah,
only
makes sense.
eats like I think it's geese.
Geese. Yeah. Yeah, there were geese like 65 million years ago.
He
Makes
can eat
sense.
them. They have no feelings.
Were they Canada geese?
I'm not sure. I don't think it was Canada then. I think it was something else.
Yeah. They had a different name for it at the time. Okay. I didn't realize.
Okay, so check it out. See how you got a little imperfection here?
Yeah.
Just go ahead and get some water on that.
Yep.
And roll right on top of it. Just go
Again.
Yeah,
Roll
just-
again.
Yeah. I try to stay off the edge. You know what I'm saying? There you go.
Okay.
See this one? You have that. Do it more like in the middle, like this, and roll that way.
Okay. You got that, Doe.
This is great. This looks really good, man.
Yeah.
Like, I would be happy with this. Like,
yeah, I am happy.
If you were at like my garage doing dinosaurs textures, this would be like
the
A+.
Garage.
Okay.
All right.
How do
Good.
you feel? I feel great. I feel like you did it, you know? Woo! So like the next phase would be go easy. Take this.
Yep.
And
Got
like
it.
keep your fingers wet.
They're
and
wet.
we're just gonna roll up
Fingers are
little
wet.
tiny balls.
Love
little,
it.
little
Yeah.
squishy balls.
Yeah.
And we're just gonna put them on there. See? Now look, what I'm building layers now. And I'm putting these are like little calcified scales that are built on top. See? And you just do like a random pattern. And like I like to pick spots like where I have like clay that's missing, like this little section. And I'll just put a little one there. And I'll put another little one right
This
here.
is when we get like the Bob Ross version.
You just get a little random. You're gonna live there, little guy.
Yeah.
You just kind of talk to the clay. And this is when you ask yourself, like, are we done? Did we do it? Should we move on to questions? Why no handle?
Yeah.
Was in the chat.
Yeah, I
Go for it.
actually was getting roasted in the chat because people were like, "Oh, you made him a roller but no handle." Mostly it was Jordan. That's how he talks. So that's how I heard it.
Handle?
Yeah. He was like, "Why isn't there a handle for the roller?" So tell us.
Okay, so I honestly feel like a handle would just get in the way. It's not needed. You just did this in no time. Look at what you just did with the little coaching. And also these gloves, they have like a little tiny dots on them. And I found that these tiny little dots, when pressed into the clay, it left like an extra little texture. Like, look at that. Just a little bit there.
So that's why there's no handle, because the gloves
see
have
those
texture.
little tiny little, and then I would
Makes
come
sense if
in
you don't think about it too
and I
long.
would do this and just kind of rough up these little sections. And then another tool I liked is this, and this just kind of buries itself in there and it just breaks up that it's no longer a blob. You know, like when Gian started his modeling process with the cube, it was just a simple cube. You know, it's the same process. We're just adding the detail. And I like this tool, this little wire tool to come in here, scuff up the surface a little bit. And just, you're just pushing it around. And you have about 20 minutes before this is like donezo. So you do have to work with urgency.
Same with apple pie crust.
Yeah, very similar.
It's really the same thing.
It's pretty much, you're
Not
right.
much different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You know what? We should have just done an apple pie.
Yep.
No, I'm hungry.
Maybe. Oh, is that SLUGME 11? We're getting a lot of nods in the room. Everybody wants to make apple pies next year.
Oh, jeez. Let's do it. So yeah, that's it. How do you feel?
I feel like we should high five.
Do you feel like doing like another, I don't know, 600 square feet?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm set.
We're good.
High five?
That's it. That's it. Let's shake hands.
Oh, okay. You
Would
should
have
have
preferred gloveless.
Yeah.
It means more, you know? Looks good. All right. God, I'd like to thank Ian,
All right.
Ryan, Emily,
Let's let that sit.
Herman.
I hear you're good at painting.
Let's do it.
You want to show
Let's switch
folks how-
gears.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're gonna
Andy left a mess.
put
for
that
us.
over there.
Yeah.
Now, I wouldn't say I'm good at painting. I would say that I fail often enough to know what not to do and what to do.
That works too. That
Okay.
sounds to me like you're great at painting.
So
We're gonna do this.
need a toothbrush on this guy.
Yeah.
Got him nice and clean. There you go.
Every
so
surface.
yeah, let's
let's get this out
I've
of
never
our
seen you clean up.
clutter-free.
Hold on, get this
No.
on. There, okay. I've seen you clean up. Turns out.
That's how we clean up. All right, so this is an airbrush
Yes,
setup, okay?
yes.
Iwata is what I use. I turn that bad boy on. This is gun 1, and this is gun 2. This is like
Love
a
it.
finer gun. This is more, covers more detail. So what we're gonna do first is we need paint. We gotta know what colors we're mixing,
Okay. How do we start with paint? Like,
It's a good question. I like
so we're gonna do gums and teeth, right? Is that the idea right now?
gums and teeth. We're just
Okay.
gonna do a couple little hits here and then build the teeth up. This is way too much red, but we'll give it a shot. What I want is like pink or skin tone, actually. This is good. I think this will work.
All right.
And traditionally speaking, I would, here, just give it a squirt.
Yes, I need a
Get my
popsicle stick or something.
Rodilsa. Popsicle
Show you the
stick
finger?
is in the back. And just, I wanted to point out this handy little airbrush caddy system.
I was looking at that.
This is custom.
You
okay?
can't buy that.
Can't get that,
You can't-
not yet. But you'll be able to download it soon because me and Todd Trout are working on a SolidWorks for Makers video series that covers the process. I just needed something in my shop to condense all the airbrush equipment. It wasn't like a plastic tote.
Right.
I like the idea of just bringing this out, popping it down. It's got a spot for the cups. The cups ride right here on this. And then the mixing sticks in the back, a little dispenser for it. So mix that bad boy up.
I'm good at mixing.
And I will get some transparent brown. And now this is acrylic paint.
Okay.
I like it because it doesn't put like crazy fumes in the air and it dries fast.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do. We did acrylic paint on the MMX ring.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I've got a tad bit of experience.
There you go.
It was just one color.
Yeah.
Black. So I was
Black's
okay.
good.
I was okay with that.
So we're gonna build up our base, and black is gonna be, it's gonna be in here. It's gonna be towards the end.
All right. So talk while you're mixing stuff up. What's the order of like? How do you put the colors down in the right order? What's
Just
logic?
guess.
You just guess.
Yeah.
All right. You don't even have to go to school. You just. have
You
that.
just fail a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. But seriously, do you like to start with this like undertones? I'm trying to hear words Chinlu would say in the background. But
Well, she's super smart.
she's smart.
You can't compare me to her. That would
I-
not be fair to anyone.
My left brain works better than my right.
Yep. So I like to start with the background.
Okay.
Like if you're painting like a landscape, I'd usually start with like the sky, then do the clouds, then do the mountain, then do the river, and then the plants, and then the
I mean,
leaves.
that's how Bob Ross would do it. So,
Bob, good
yeah,
guy.
I mean,
Never got to meet him.
No.
Nope. But
All right. So you made a pinky thing, a brownie thing, and a blacky thing.
I'm gonna get a little red,
Yes.
little red in here.
All right. Oh, I can mix again.
Yeah, mix that.
Love it.
Okay. First thing I'm gonna paint is.
That was a lot of red. I hope you were going for that.
Is it really red?
I mean, you know.
It's pretty bad. Yeah.
Well, let's go with it. Let's see what happens.
little red
you
goes a
said
long way.
we fail often.
I do.
That's how we learn.
Yeah. Just keep.
There's no coming back from this, brother.
Yeah, no, this has got to be just one drop.
All right, done.
Okay.
Oh,
Ooh,
watch
dang.
that one.
Time out.
We'll blame that on Andy.
It's a
So we're
clutter-free
going for
zone.
gray, right? This is how I mix paint. We get to gray.
We're doing it.
I love it. Let's go.
All right. We're gonna send it.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Dump it in.
How much?
It's the bucket. Dump it in the bucket.
The whole thing? Like
That's
that?
good.
Oh, yeah. I've never airbrushed before. You know
Me
this.
neither.
That's why they put me here with you. 'Cause oh God, that's not a tissue. That's
okay.
gross.
That was clay. Hey.
It's, I don't know where it is. Right here. Oh, thank you. All right. Why don't you show the people how to paint?
This is gonna. Okay, so we're just gonna throw a little paint on here.
Should I be wearing safety glasses?
No.
A mask.
No.
Okay. That's pretty quick.
Yeah.
How do you know when you're out of paint?
It stops painting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't. So just getting in there, and for speed's sake, I'm gonna dump. I gotta dump this.
All right. Can I be of assistance? I can watch well. Don't worry about that.
Where's the cup? Let's dump it back in the cup. That's what.
That's
smart
not the
people
cup. Oh, that
do.
is the cup that came out. Jesus, yeah.
That's good. We're doing good. Everything's gonna be okay.
Yeah. This is a no clutter zone, by the way.
I see that. It's unfortunate. All right, so I just did a quick paint change.
Yes. Normally you would purge.
Probably.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm gonna purge what's
you-
in there. And this has got a little filter baked into it. It's just a little pot, just dumping that, and then we'll just go.
Did you get that at Diagon Alley?
I'm not sure. Yes.
Okay. The Harry Potter reference.
Sorry.
I think kids are too young for that, but
They are. Max read the first book. And then the whole series is somewhere in our attic, and we're just horrible parents. We haven't got it yet. Kid just wants to read all the time. It's great. So like, check this out. I like this. This is like an aerial attack. Okay.
Okay. Go.
What we're going for is a little black dot right here. We're just going to come up with some imperfections and just see that.
Oh man, look at that.
Look at a little whoopity whoopity whoop. There's a longer one. So we're kind of cheating because GoE put in some really cool textures, you know, and we can come in a little wider right here and just I'm burning the inside of these teeth. Okay. I'm going to add some yippity-yoos, you know?
That's right.
It's a technical term.
Did I hear you say you had like a template or something when you did the real teeth?
Templates are for cowards.
Oh, all right.
We're doing this in the breeze. If you want a real challenge, you airbrush outside on a windy day.
Oh, where you have no control.
Yeah, no control. You got to get like 20 feet back and like lay it. And like, wah! You ride the wind waves to justice. Okay. We're getting a little out of bounds here, so I'm going to bring us back in.
You know, you have a second paintbrush, airbrush,
I don't
What's
like
that called?
it. This is the workhorse.
Air gun?
Yeah, that's like, it's a really nice one, but it's like for like doing like lightning bolts or something really fine, or
Like
hair.
Harry Potter. We're back to Harry Potter again.
Yeah, let's stick with that. That's a good thing.
All right. Brown.
The best thing about Harry Potter is they just make up words.
Yeah.
I like making up words. I do that all
Oh,
the time.
I've heard a couple things.
I'm gonna purge this real quick. We're almost through the woods, okay?
Yes.
I don't even know if we're gonna get to white. We could. I mean, we're doing it, but here comes some brown. This is just gonna age it, okay? It's just getting a little aging, little plaque, little gingivitis, little cavities, okay? And another thing like I like to do is like hammer this real good, and then I come through with my trusty clean sponge and watch. There's where the cellular level comes in, and you're starting to get that.
Did you ever take an anatomy class?
White. Yeah.
You did?
Yeah, probably. I don't know. Did you ever go to school?
Yeah, but I stopped at kindergarten.
Here.
And then I got.
We're
my
gonna
CSO
repair
degree.
this tooth
Oh,
while we
what?
have
You should
the
be wearing
power.
gloves, no? Is this gonna?
Yeah,
burn
this
you?
is gonna stay on my skin, and it's so not good.
Wet your fingers.
There. So we fixed that tooth. I had to do that a couple of times throughout the project because I kept breaking teeth on that. Yeah, it happens.
He ate too much candy.
So I don't know, man. What do you think?
I think it's great. I
Did we
mean,
make a mess
I
yet?
mean, yeah. Well, no. I mean, already, like
We're gonna hit some white. I'm sorry. Tell Dan Wagner we need another minute. Just 1 minute, Dan.
1 minute.
Just one more time. Okay.
Where's the white going? On the teeth?
We're gonna figure it out. And dude, I'm even putting reducer in. You're getting crazy. We're letting our hair down.
I feel like I should be wearing safety glasses.
It's probably a bad idea. Maybe a good one.
You should be in my shop with me all the time. You're a good napkin.
It's good. Notice I don't even. It doesn't even faze
No,
me.
no.
I got 4 kids.
It's
That's like
it's-
the least
it's
of my.
like we're brothers. Here we go.
Yeah, okay,
That's
that was
not
bad.
white.
Gotta purge. Gotta purge. So we go ahead and purge
We're gonna
that
pull that tooth after this show.
right about now.
Go. Let's try. Oh yeah.
There's some white. We would come in and just kind of give some highlights of just shooting down the surface a little bit, catching some light, some white. Yeah.
I guess it was good that this was removable, so you could paint the inside of the teeth. If you had to be up in his grill, it would
I
be-
did request that it was all printed one shot, but it was fine. So normally, traditionally speaking, I would prime this all white first, so I wouldn't be starting with like this yellowish.
Yeah, it's because it's soaking up the.
But yeah, that's. What do you think?
That's a beautiful.
It's quick.
What was it, like a half hour? Yeah,
Quick.
it's good.
Brushes. I always have brushes on hand. The dirtier, the better to get those like gnarly streaks in. But yeah, that's pretty quick.
So that time 600 square feet, and you got a Frank.
Yeah. Just just the volume was startling with Frank.
But you had a bigger air gun to do the majority of the.
Yeah,
This was for the.
I used my
detail.
automotive
Yeah,
spray
yeah,
gun
yeah.
for all the base, and I even tried getting tricky and doing some camouflage stripes with it by holding it sideways.
Yeah.
It's like Tupac in there, But that got a little out of control because you're shooting a lot of volume with that gun. So kind of got in trouble. I had to backtrack a little bit. But the best part about like working with like organic creatures and shapes is they're not perfect. They are chaos. They are what they are. So flaws
Kinda
are
like you.
Flaws are preferred. Right.
Yeah.
Kind of like me. Sure.
Hey, I think
Good.
Dan Wagner wants to say something.
Well, we should let Dan talk for a little bit.
Yeah.
He's really good at it.
It is.
All right.
We still have like one last little bit that we need to do to ice this cake. I'm going to turn it over to Kirby for that.
Yeah, put this apple in.
All right. This one's for you, Luke. Yes.
It's the symbolic finishing of Frank.
Looks so good. Here's the plate.
Yeah, don't breathe.
Good boy, Frank.
All right, everybody, bring it in. Let's wrap this thing up. All right. That was a lot of fun. I want to thank everybody in this room and everybody behind the camera on this side and everybody joining us online. There's been hundreds of people hanging out this whole time, chatting in the live chat, interacting with the team here. We did our best to relay the questions that we could. And I think my favorite answer, I think, was the handle discussion for the roller. That was pretty awesome. So as we wrap this up, a lot of things we want to keep in mind. 3D Experience World is around the corner. If you didn't register already, please do. You're going to see Frank live and in person in Houston. Yes. Todd, as we're closing out SLUGME, is there anything you want to say to all the fans out there?
Just thanks for chiming in, and definitely in the chat, let us know what you want to see. I mean, we are here for you. Let us know what sounds good. Let us know what sounds cool. And you saw in the very beginning how this design just took its own course.
Life finds a way.
Yeah,
life finds a way.
Yeah. But next year we really need to go to 11.
We're going to dial it up to 11.
Bring it up a notch.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us. This has been SLUGME 10, and we'll see you later.
Thank you.
Bye. Woo!